Directing traffic, gonna go deep, has a man deep. It is caught for the touchdown, Corey Davis.
If he has good technique, he will be elite. If his technique becomes great, not just good, then he's a Hall of Famer. Drive face, full cell vertical, get into the blind spot, and he absolutely burns it. Corner is lost. He literally has no idea where Wilson is.
Really high floor, really high ceiling. You could be talking about the best corner in the league. Sauce can do that.
This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blitz. I think that's the old one. I always get confused if that's. I think I just used the older intro again with Becton still in it. But nonetheless, Kyle, man, what is up?
Well, speaking of the intro, and I was actually going to bring it up, despite the fact that you brought it up, and I was thinking, man, actually sounds pretty good right now. The Sauce thing that I said, I mean, we both hyped him up a lot, but it's me who's talking about him in that part of the intro. And yeah, man, I know that we pointed out some of the little teensy weensy struggles that he's had, but I mean, man, he is looking like a top flight corner already as a rookie. So that's great.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's got me happy for sure. And I'd be lying. I know it was the garbage Bears who we knew they were going to be bad at the beginning of the season. And then they went and traded their two best defensive players. And then you could argue the third best defensive player got hurt relatively early in the game. But it was still, anytime you come in by 21 points and you operate that effectively on offense, you're still going against NFL players. You have to be decently happy. And I am a little bit excited for what's the future with Mike White. I'm a little bit excited.
Why not a lot of bit excited, Kyle?
Well, because it still is Mike White. And, that we know that he's a little bit of a limited athlete and stuff. And he does play a little bit reckless from time to time. We even saw some of that in the Bengals game. We certainly all remember the Bills game last year, but that's one game. And, in terms of him as a starter, I mean, like, he is 27 years old, but as a starter in the league, he's still relatively young. So, man, when we compare what we saw, how he operated the offense versus Zach Wilson, I mean, it's night and day. Now, how would Zach Wilson have played if he was in that game? I mean, I have no doubt that, he would have put up some numbers, but he would not have operated that offense as efficiently. So I hate to say it, but
yeah, long way from the post-game stream after the Pats game where I was ranting for a little bit. I'm much more.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one, but I can only imagine what you were saying.
It wasn't good. It was.
I did see, because Eagle Fang commented and tagged us on Twitter and said, "Watch this, Mark." And apparently you said "fuck Johnny" or whatever. Ice cream Johnny.
Nah, it was something like Eagles. Like, I feel bad for Johnny. I was like, I don't feel bad for Johnny. He's barely.
You said "fuck Johnny." Let's be honest.
Yes, you did. I don't. Did I? I might have. Yeah. No, I'm glad we beat the Bears.
Later,
too.
you quickly, you might have realized the wrong of your ways or whatever. And about like 15 seconds later, you're like, "I love Johnny," but you did say that.
He hasn't been through hard times. He's okay. Yeah, so glad we beat the Bears. I think the last live stream I said, like, they need to win by at least 2 scores, if not 2 touchdowns, and to see them win 31-10. And let's be real, like, they took their foot off the gas, for the most part. With like 7-8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they could have probably scored again if they really wanted to. But I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. The rain at the game was ridiculous. Like, that Ravens game was like rainy. This game was downpouring. I brought some rain gear and somehow it ripped. I don't know how it ripped, but then I was just sitting there in the stands in long johns, which I thought about after the benefit of like having a few beers is you don't care. But I was like, long johns wet are probably very revealing. So I wonder what some of people's views were when I was walking by them. But that was a good time. I'm also happy that the Bears, like, I don't know if I told you this story, but when we were in Chicago for that Bears. Who the hell did the Bears play? It was the Commanders. We went to Soldier Field, and we were at the bar, and like, we like walk up to the bar, and there's like he's like definitely a bigger dude, like sitting in the corner of the bar, and we're trying to order drinks. It's a pretty packed place, and he's like, "Oh, Jets fans." We're like, "No, like, what's your problem with Jets fans?" kind of deal. And it was Ryan Griffin's dad. I told you about that or no?
Okay, I didn't hear him say, "Oh, Jets fans." I didn't hear that part of it, but I did hear. I don't know if it was you or Tom, who I did see Tom in the chat earlier. One of you guys was telling me that you guys had met his father. And
yeah, he's like,
apparently he
Jets
said
fans.
that he was there to mentor Cole Kmet or something like that.
He was Yeah, Ryan Griffin was there to mentor superstar tight end Cole Kmet. I was like, bro, I don't want to say it, but like one, Cole Kmet's not a superstar, and your son is not mentoring anybody. He's just a backup. Let's be real here, because he's kind of like talking shit about the Jets, like, yeah, they did him dirty, this and that, and that. I was like, okay,
They did him dirty. He was,
whatever.
dude. I mean, like that.
They give him a
dude was
massive contract that he didn't deserve. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to beat the Bears and Ryan Griffin's dad. So that was fun. Bills Pats tonight as well, Kyle, which I think is I don't know how you're rooting for it.
Come on, go Bills, man, go Bills.
Yeah. So you might be in the same like kind of realm as me. Like once they lost both
we got
games,
the win over the Bills. We got the Pats have a straight tiebreaker over us.
and then because I put it out and I didn't even think about it. I was like, after I was like, yeah, I should have expected this type of response. But like, I guess the Dolphins Chargers game got flexed into prime time next week, and I was like, oh, we might have to root for the Dolphins, like throw up emoji. And people are like, no way, never, like division, which is great. Like I love the idea of winning the division, but at the same point, like I want to guarantee at least a playoff spot, and we need the Chargers to lose games, because at this point, again, you're thinking the Dolphins are in, you're thinking the Bills are in, you're thinking the Bengals and the Ravens are in. So it's basically Jets, in my opinion, at least Jets, Pats, Chargers who are competing for that for 6, 7, 5, whatever it's exactly going to be. But those are the teams in contention. I think the Pats fall off. If you look at the Chargers schedule, it's not overly tough. So if they can lose that game and go to 6-6 or whatever they'll be, like that'll obviously lower their chances dramatically. We're like, yeah, I would have loved the idea of the division too, but that kind of got swept under the rug a little bit for me once they lost both Pats game. Now, is it possible if they can listen, at the end of the day, we're talking about the Vikings game. I think the Jets could legitimately beat the Vikings. I probably predict them to beat the Vikings. I think they can beat the Seahawks. I think they should beat the Jags and the Lions. That would bring them to 11 wins. Could they win the division with that? Maybe. But at the same point, I just want the playoffs. So the Chargers losing to me is a good thing. I think the Dolphins are going to win a few games here, but nonetheless.
Yeah. And well, I mean, Von Miller's not going to play in 2 weeks when we play the Bills. So that is, and they're also banged up. I mean, Epinesa is also hurt on the D line, and I'm pretty sure one of their other edge players is hurt as well. So they did get Trey White back, but they've been banged up in the secondary all year with pretty much Hyde is out all year. You know how good he is, and Poyer's been in and out of the lineup. So, catching the Bills, and, Allen has had one of his worst games in the past couple of years against us. I mean, I don't
he's not
expect
been
the Jets to win.
Allen this year. He's not been MVP Allen this year.
Yeah, not been MVP Allen, but still a really, 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 really good player. I wouldn't predict the Jets to win in Buffalo. Tough place to play, but I mean, shit, man. They have a shot in hell. What was the Salo line from this past week? I'll take our guys pretty much up against anyone, something like that. I mean, like, this team's playing with confidence, right? Like the Jets on any given week can hang with a team. And especially now that they got a guy who can actually, hit a check down, that switches things up a little bit, man. So
yeah, and they should be like legitimately, they should be 9-2. And if you really want to like get into like, okay, well, this game, that game, I'll give you the Browns game. Okay, they should be 8-3. They should have swept the Pats. I can understand a loss to the Browns, but like, those Pats games are the Pat games are frustrating because like you put Mike White in those games, like at the end of the day, is he getting more than 2 yards in the second half against the Pats? I think so personally. So it is frustrating, but there's still a chance of the division, but I would rather guarantee a spot than I can't say I'd rather guarantee a spot than win the division. Like I like that goal, but at the minimum, I want the Chargers to lose. But we'll see what happens after this week. Maybe if they beat the Vikings, then we're talking a little bit different about the Dolphins and Chargers, because then I think if the Dolphins lose that game and we win the next game against the Bills, then we're talking about first place in the AFC East. Which if they beat the Vikings and then the Dolphins lose to the Chargers and we beat the Bills and we're in first place, like I think that's what it would be. Holy shit, that'd be ridiculous with upcoming games against the Lions and Jaguars. So, but let's get to the chat first before it gets away from me, which it is undeniably going to. Chris was in here very early. I got a feeling that this is going to be a complete blowout. I'll talk about the Vikings game in a little bit. But
which way is he talking? Jets blowout? Or
I'm assuming a Jets blowout. I don't think you'd say a Vikings. Now, I guess it could be a Vikings blowout, but like you look at the Vikings schedule, which I can pull up later, and they have a lot of close games with a lot of bad teams. Their defense, their pass defense is the bottom pass defense in the NFL. Their run defense isn't great either. It's somewhere like in the 20s. Even their offense, like I think like the DVOA numbers came out this week, and like they're in like the mid-teens to 20s.
Is Darisaw playing?
He was out today, so he has a concussion, and I know he had multiple concussions in back-to-back weeks or whatever it was. So yeah, their interior offensive line, that Nani put out an article about how much they struggled. So check that out. You'd have a backup left tackle. You have a not very mobile quarterback. So I think you look at the Jets and Vikings matchup, which again we'll get into more later, but like you're talking about an upper tier defense versus let's say an upper tier offense, even though their numbers don't suggest they're actually as good as some people think they are on offense. And then you have a bad defense versus an offense for the Jets that is not ranked well, but with Mike White at the helm, could they be just an average offense, just in that 15 to 20 range? Because that's not what they were getting with Zach Wilson some of these weeks. And you pair an elite defense with a mid-tier offense, dude, like you're talking about a pretty damn good team I think could legitimately beat the Vikings. So I could see them winning this game, and we'll see if I predict them to win this game. But there's definitely a avenue to that, especially, again, struggling offensive line, left tackle out, defensive line that should be, eating versus them. Hopefully Sheldon Rankins coming back, so I think you could sack Cousins a little bit and force them into some mistakes where they're not putting up, 24 points on the Jets. I think the Jets, the most they've allowed all year was 22 to the Pats that 1 week. But past that, they haven't really allowed more
24
than
to the Ravens
points.
week 1.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, and the Bengals maybe. But past the first couple of weeks, obviously, where we've really been clicking, I think the most has been 22 to the Pats. Even the Bills was 17. So the Jets score 24, 27 points against this Vikings defense. I think they win. I don't see the Vikings putting up more than 24 to 20 points on the Jets. So put up 27. Have your day against a bad pass defense. So we'll see. It's gonna be a fun game. That's for sure. I'm excited to watch them in a dome as well.
Yeah, me too. So my brother's a big Bills fan, and he's been following their building of their stadium and stuff. And apparently, like, there was serious talks about making that new stadium a dome stadium, but a lot of the Bills fans are saying, no, we want to keep it outside. We want the elements, right? That home field advantage, right? We want teams like Miami to come to Buffalo late in the year and not be used to playing in the cold. And if you're Minnesota, it's one of the colder places to play in the league. I don't know why they'd want to build. I mean, I know it's all about getting a Super Bowl and things like that, but I don't like the fact that so many places are going to the dome stadium and stuff, especially if you have that outdoor cold element. When I think football, I think, cold weather, man, hitting somebody, and, when it's cold out, it hurts. Like, to me, that's football. I don't know. I mean, like, if I was the Vikings and I was a Vikings fan, I don't think I'd be too thrilled with that. But anyway.
A lot better is like, okay, you have the weather, but you have also the crowd noise, like how much that deflects off to the roof and stuff. So
True.
And they have the whole like skull clap and stuff, which makes it super, super loud. So I get it either way. Like maybe have a retractable roof. I don't know. Swolzy, O-line integration is on our part will be key. Sure, things have looked good against the future gym teachers that Chicago threw at us, but Hunter and Smith will be a different story. I know Hunter's been struggling a little bit more this year, and Smith is very, very good, but like past okay, a little bit of Hunter and just Smith in general, there's not really like Eric Kendricks is solid, but he's not what he was a few years ago.
Pat Peterson's old as hell. Harrison Smith is old as hell. I know that their Cam Dantzler, their safety is out. They moved him to safety?
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's safety. I could be wrong. Maybe it's
because they drafted him as a corner.
Yeah, he's tall, right? He's like 6'4". I think he's a safety now. I could be wrong. We'll look at the Orlods depth chart later, but they're pretty banged up defense. But and with the offensive line, I'm more with Herbig coming back and even Mitchell coming back, who played well last week. I'm more confident in them run blocking than I am in them necessarily pass blocking. But I don't think these guys should be able to beat us up, especially when you're considering Mike White gets the ball out, what it was like 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 seconds, whatever it was last week, very, very quick. So you're not giving a pass rush the chance to get there. Steps up in the pocket well. It's not going to affect him like it affects, Zach Wilson. So, yeah, there are obviously concerns, but at the same point, the Jets have played some good pass rushers and they haven't necessarily murdered them. So another question or just a question from Swolzy. Do you think they keep an injured Brown out there or swap him out with Fant to allow Brown to have surgery and time to come back healthy next year?
Did you talk about the shoulder?
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, they're starting him week in, week out. I mean, how serious is the injury to the point where you want to put Fant in, who also probably is not going to be 100%, being out so long. I don't think that he's going to have surgery yet at this point. I mean, like, if he's going to have surgery, he'll have it in the off season. I don't think, he could have had it earlier in the year. Why say like, oh no, I want to play this year and then play a certain amount of games and play at a decent level. And then, you know what? I'm not going to finish out the season while we're making a playoff push. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like, Fant hasn't been healthy in a little bit, so Fant comes back. He's the left tackle. He gets injured. Brown had surgery. What are we doing at left tackle?
Yeah.
Mekhi Becton on crutches out there. Like, what are we doing? So playoff push. He's staying now. If the Jets were 4-7 instead of 7-4, okay, fine. Different story. But that's not the case. He's not going to get surgery right now. Our defense will make the real Kirk the choke Cousins come out on Sunday. Like, let me pull up their schedule, Kyle, because I don't necessarily like to like schedule hunt and all that stuff because you could go against the Jets and say, oh, we'll back up this, back up that. But the Vikings, yes, they're 8-2, right? But the first week blowout win against the Packers, awesome, 23-7 at home. Then they lost 24-7 against the Eagles. Then they beat the Lions by 4 points. Then they beat the Saints by 3 points. Then they beat the Bears by just 7 points. Then they beat the Dolphins by 8. Okay, good win. They beat the Cardinals by 8.
By the way, that Dolphins did not have Tua in that
Yeah.
game, and I think they had Teddy in that game. I think.
Okay. They beat the Cardinals by 8. I already said that. They beat the Commanders by 3. They beat the Bills by 3. Obviously, classic freaking game that the Bills did choke away at the end. They got blown out against the Cowboys 40-3. And then that game against the Patriots, I'm not sure how much you watched of it, but
I watched
the
a decent amount in the second half.
I was not impressed by the Vikings defense in any way.
The Pats were moving the ball for sure.
They were moving the ball for sure, and I think the Jets have a better defense than the Patriots. So I don't think the Jets necessarily let the Vikings score 26 points. And people say, oh, they held the Jets to 3 points. They held the Jets with Zach Wilson to 3 points in one of his worst games we've ever seen as a pro. So I don't think they're as good as that. Like even the first game against the Pats, I think that's more of what we should produce versus the Pats.
Yeah,
but
that was interesting. Little thought experiment right there, because pretty much all their wins were kind of close nail biters, but then they got their ass kicked in their 2 losses.
Yeah,
like
and they're close games to
what
teams aren't
happened
that great.
game?
The Cowboys game.
Yeah, like what? Why
Yeah.
3 points? Wow.
I don't know. Hopefully we do whatever they're doing. What's up, Rusty? Gangrene Family Savages, Mike fucking White, Butcher Block Defense. Let's go. Love the excitement. What's up, Phil? Does Fant start when healthy, or do you let Mitchell continue to start with the idea that you let Fant walk in the offseason? It's really, to me, it's really about how healthy is Fant. You're not going to rush him back and bring him in at 90%. You want to bring him back at 100. And how much of an upgrade do you feel Fant would be at this point in the season versus Mitchell? If he's a significant upgrade over Mitchell, you play the better player because you're racing for the playoffs. Again, if they were 4-7, you play Mitchell no matter what. But the fact that they're racing for the playoffs, you want the best starter out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it really depends on how healthy he is.
Twisted, what's up? Art, what's up? Matthew Wallace, Sauce has to get his head around, but besides that, yeah, he's legit. That play, I broke it down like it was weird how
the Claypool play.
Yeah, it was weird how it happened because like once Claypool like gets extension with the arm, Sauce feels that he's losing vertically, so he tries to really gear it up to match him vertically, and as he's trying to match him vertically, that's when Claypool uses like that throw by to get back on Sauce, and then Sauce is kind of in panic mode, just puts his shoulder into his like stomach or chest and trying to dives at him. So it wasn't as bad as some people make it seem to be. It was definitely OPI, but Sauce gets away with some DPIs too, and you're gonna get beat. But it wasn't a play where I was like, holy shit, this is terrible technique by Sauce. So it's gonna happen. Like, listen, if they're gonna have to make that difficult of a catch to beat Sauce every once in a while, we're gonna take it. It's not like he was streaking down the sideline. Resi, I think Reezy. Hey, greetings from Austria again. I'm just glad no Jets games got flexed into prime time. Oh, what? Because what are they? Are they 5 hours ahead? So it'd be like
more than that.
5. I thought it was 5 hours. I could be wrong. Maybe 6, 7. But regardless, the game would start at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Joe and Kyle, you stud muffins. I appreciate that. Thank you. Dakota, Meatball, Lamar Jackson to us Jets soon. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're gonna tag him. Geno, Sam, and White all had a higher rating this week than Zach ever had in 20 games. Yeah, listen. At the end of the day, like I don't like the stats thing because you see Josh Johnson come in, throw for 300 yards. You see Mike White come throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. You see all these guys spreading the ball out to different receivers. Flacco getting the ball to different receivers. Mike White, 10 different receivers got completions this week, or 10 different targets got completions this week. Like, the offense works. Zach Wilson wasn't executing it. Now, are we giving up on him? I think the The proper thing is to say, no, you're not giving up on him. Is there a very, very low shot I think he works out with the Jets? I think there's a very, very low shot he works out with the Jets because, listen, at the end of the day, if Mike White continues to play like he is, or even play at somewhat of a decent level, Zach Wilson's not going to play again this year, and then you're not going to go into the next season with him as the starter, right? Like it's either going to be, which it will be an entirely interesting conversation in the offseason, Kyle. If Mike White continues to play, what do we do with him? Do we pay him? Do we not? Is it a flash in the pan? Do we bring in Garoppolo? That's going to be a whole thing. Which, by the way, 2 weeks ago we said, oh, looking forward to a boring offseason. Maybe not. Maybe not. But it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that. Any comments on that? While I'm gonna continue to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much detail we want to go into what Mike White did well at this point, because I know that at some point we'll get into that. But I mean, he is still young. I mean, like the difference between like him and like a Ryan Fitzpatrick is like, I don't know about you, and I'm strongly assuming I know what your take is on this. I never believed that Ryan Fitzpatrick was the long-term solution for the Jets. Like, yes, I really wanted to re-sign him for an additional year after the year that he had, but I never thought like, oh yeah, this is our guy for the future. Mike White, I can't say that I believe in that as of yet. I mean, at all. But I mean, he is younger than Fitzpatrick, right? And so he started 4 games now, even though he only played like 3.5, not even 3.5. He's looked pretty decent in about, 2.5 of those games. And because he's young, I mean, and I think it's fair to say that, he's has a bigger arm than somebody like Fitzpatrick. Like when Fitzpatrick has to put heat on the ball, he has to put every ounce of his body into it. And he is, a little bit taller than somebody like Fitzpatrick. So, you do wonder, like, is there like a higher upside? Like, could this guy potentially reach like a Kirk Cousins like level? And I think if he could ever reach that level of play, we would sign up for it. Yeah. But, it's, there's just so, I mean, like the thing is 7 games enough to prove that? Like, let's say 7 games, considering they don't make the playoffs. Let's say you make the playoffs and you're one and done, is 8 games, this season plus, 2.5 or whatever it was the previous season. Is that enough to say, man, this is our guy for the future? And to the point where you wouldn't want to make a move in the offseason?
Especially when you're risking a playoff roster on it too. It's not like, oh, the Jets are, 5-12 and he played okay. It's like, no, they need a quarterback right now. So if he's not the answer, we'll talk about that down the line. But I do think, like, in terms of Mike White, which we'll get to the chat more before we even hit on his game necessarily, but I do think this was better than his Bengals game. Like the Bengals game, he threw 2 bad picks, right? Like he had 3 touchdowns.
The one pick to Jesse Bates wasn't so. The one pick to Jesse Bates wasn't so bad because it was kind of like on a tip ball where I think the receiver might have dropped it, and I can't remember who the receiver was. He did. There was like whatever running back it was running like a wheel route kind of late, and there was a lurking safety coming down on high. Oh, and White almost threw a pick to that. Mm-hmm. It should have been a pick 6. Honestly,
yeah, he dropped it, hit him in the hands.
Yeah,
I remember that one. Shadow, what 3 things are you looking forward to observe in the Jets Vikings game?
Mike White's play is definitely on there for sure.
Mike White, Jets defensive line versus their offensive line, their receivers versus our corners. I would say the top.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson versus Sauce. I mean, like, Sauce is. You can tell. I almost wonder, like, did Claypool get a win on Sauce this game because maybe Sauce was kind of like overlooking Claypool? I already played the scrub earlier in the season. I'm focused on JJ next week, and he already started watching Justin Jefferson film. I mean, like, that's a possibility. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. You've been talking about that one all year, Joe. I mean, actually, the back-to-back weeks, because he's got Diggs the following week, and we already saw that Diggs obviously had at least one good rep on him earlier. You said from the beginning of the season those are going to be the 2 toughest tests for him.
Yeah, it's I saw some type of like numbers with where Jefferson lines up, and he lines up more on the left side of the offense and in the slot. So you'd think that actually leads him less to playing Sauce. Now, unless they travel Sauce with him or whatever it's going to be, which will be interesting to look at. But Hawk, what's up?
They haven't. I mean, he's still predominantly on the left side of the defense, Sauce, but they have been playing him a little bit more as of lately on the other side.
Art Von Miller went into the IR today, so he's out at least 4 weeks. That's why he's out. Kevin, what is up? Joe and Kyle preaching now, yeah, boy. So I guess I gotta keep going in the chat. If I don't keep up in the chat, I get so screwed in like 30 minutes from now, and I just feel bad that I skip over chats. So I'm gonna Vikings been unimpressed. The thing with the Vikings is I'm worried about like and for that game, you know, I guess we don't have to preview a lot later because we're already kind of doing it a little bit now. But with them, I'm okay with getting beat by Jefferson a few times. I'm okay with letting Jefferson have 5, 6, 7 catches for 80 yards, 90 yards. Like I'm not saying it has to happen, but I'm comfortable with that. I'm more worried about the Vikings in terms of TJ Hawkinson and then not tackling Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. That's the things that I think will change this game. If they can't freaking tackle, Dalvin Cook is maybe not like prime Dalvin Cook of maybe a year or 2 or 3 ago. But he's still a very, very good running back. And Hawkinson is a very solid tight end. And the Jets have not been great with tackling and covering tight ends and running backs out of the backfield, regardless of what anybody will tell you. So that's my bigger concern with the Vikings offense. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Jefferson's not a concern, but I think, you know, the Jets corners will do a good job at least managing him, you know, where I'm not as confident with the linebackers and safeties against their backfield and tight ends.
Yeah, I wish I was that confident that they could manage him. I mean, like, I really do believe very strongly in our cornerbacks being pretty damn good, but, you know, he is, I think it's fair to say, the best in the game right now. And really the only guy who's really contained him at all this year seems to be Darius Slay in that one game, which I didn't really watch that game, but apparently the numbers are, it was like 1 catch for 7 yards or something like that, if those stats are correct. But he's been pretty much a beast week in, week out, outside from that. But yeah, the tackling has been, you know, they made Montgomery look like he was, you know, prime Ricky Williams this past week. That was a piss poor. And Ramondre Stevenson, you know, shit.
Tackling's like, bad, man.
You know, Ramondre Stevenson looked like Jim Brown back in his heyday a couple of weeks ago. And that was disgusting. So that's been a big issue. And that's, I mean, I guess it's fair to say that that's a bigger concern, not because Cook is better than Jefferson, but because where we're struggling at right now.
Yeah, Joe's saying a lot of pressure on Kirk. That's what the Cowboys did, which I have to go back and watch, but take Joe's word for it. Then you're hoping the Jets' defensive line, with how much you're getting paid, you know, rushing versus a bad interior offensive line, and most likely a backup left tackle, they can get some pressure. And if you can get some pressure with 4, then you have more guys in coverage to handle, you know, the Hawkinsons and all those guys out there. So where I know the Cowboys blitz at least a lot more than the Jets do. So I'm having more guys in coverage. Hopefully we can do it. And especially with their left tackle being out with a concussion, that's huge. Like, Darisaw is a solid player for them. So people talk about Quinn and Sue, which Quinn's been a little bit more quiet the last couple of weeks. He's still been pretty solid, but last week he was definitely pretty quiet, which Twisted brings up Kyle and Joe, the Jets D versus the Bears, only 1 sack. Your thoughts here? They had 2 sacks.
Well, they had the Bryce Huff sack, which
doesn't count. Kind of it counts, but it doesn't count.
Yeah, that's mostly on the Bears rather than anything that the Jets did.
And then
I do feel like they had another sack.
Shepard. JFM Shepard had a split sack. Yeah, the rush wasn't great. I talked about that in the review. Like, and they did get rid of the ball relatively quickly. At least in you know, watching it. And it's wet out.
And they didn't try to throw a ton. I mean, even late in the game when they were down a ton, they were still running the ball.
Running the ball, wet out, it's harder to get off. It's slippery. With it being said, I'm not necessarily blaming the weather, like, all for it, because their pass rush was still a little bit disappointing in this game. And I'm not saying they're disappointing as just an overall unit. Like, considering what they should be, and they're a top 5 unit, in my opinion, they did not play like a top 5 unit in that game. Australia is 15. He's in Austria, not Australia, though.
I knew Austria.
I know.
You thought it was Austria?
Joe Farrow. I don't know what that freaking mark is on the screen. It disappears. It comes when it wants. It does what it wants. That's I don't know what it is, and I'm not buying a new computer yet, so you have to deal with it a little bit. Let's see. Not buy a new one. If I buy a new one, it's gonna be a really expensive one. So a lot of work to the house. We'll talk about it. I know. Every week.
Wait. So when you did a live stream last week, was it not there?
No, I think it was there last week, but like then we did 2 live streams in a row where like it was there for a couple of weeks and it was gone for a couple of weeks. Like, oh shit, look, it disappeared.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wondering because I wasn't on last week, so I didn't know.
It's not there. Every single person in here has an eye floater that you don't know you have. So that's what that is. It's an eye floater. Let's see. That first play you went over in the X Factor video from today with the dump off to Bam. Can't Mims stop his route if the safety plays off to him that much, guessing the original route. what was it, like a vertical route? There's built-in what am I looking for in routes? Like there's built-in, not checks to routes. There's built-in like almost like side adjustments to routes where if a guy is playing, too high or he's playing too far outside, you could break your route off in accordance with that. But that's not every single route. So if his route is meant to go vertical in accordance with the play concept, he can't just break it short. Now, could he slow up a little bit and hope that him and Mike White are on the same page in terms of him throwing the ball? Yes, but it's not something where, just sit it down because he's playing over the top. Now, it could be that there could be that built into the offense, but we can't just assume that. So I guess something interesting going on.
I can't even think what play he's talking about off the top of my head. I'd have to see it. I mean, I watched it, but I can't think what play he's talking about.
I would put Sauce on Thielen and bracket Jefferson. And didn't it do that versus Diggs a little bit where they put was it Diggs they put Reed on him and then had Jordan over the top and then put Sauce on Gabe Davis? I think that was that game, right? I could be wrong. Yeah.
Belichick has done that a lot throughout his career. And he actually did that a lot when he had Revis that 1 year too.
Mm-hmm.
Put Revis to lock up the number 2 guy and then bracket the number 1.
What's up, Kev? Black spot replaces the coin prediction for the rest of the season. If fuck the coin, right? So Kyle, Mike White, overall? I had the stats somewhere. 20 was like 22 for 28, a little bit over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns,
315 yards, yeah.
315 yards. Okay, this was by far this was his best game to me. And again, he struggled versus the Bills. He did solid versus the Colts. I think in 2 drives he had like almost 100 yards, 90-ish yards. Was playing pretty well versus them. Pats in relief played okay. Bengals game was solid. He struggled versus the Bills, but at the end of the day, you look at where the Jets were in that game. He threw a lot of his picks when the Jets were down pretty big, and he's a lot more talent on this team with a lot better of a defense. So I feel like he shouldn't think he has to force as many balls as he did that game. I don't think the Jets will ever be down 2 scores in really any game for the rest of the season. So I'm more confident in him going forward than I was last year. At the end of the day, you're looking at a guy starting his first couple of games. Is he not allowed to have his lumps? Because he's a backup, he can't have a bad game or two. We can continue to roll with him. We've seen him for what? This is his 5th or 6th game as a Jet. He's thrown for over 300 yards multiple times. The Bengals game was very good. This game was very, very good for him. I know we're playing the Bears, but the thing is, and we'll argue it all day, is results versus processing. His processing this game was very, very good. Regardless of who you're playing, he did a good job making decisions. He did a good job with his pocket manipulation. He did a good job with his conflict climbs. He did a good job with his transitional footwork from read to read. He did a good job reading coverages very, very quickly, determining that he had to get down to the flat. There's a difference. I say
he did a good job selling play action. He sells play action better than Darnold, better than Zach, better than Joe Flacco. I mean, he's good at selling play action fakes, which is obviously
and Kyle's big on that. And and the thing is, there's a difference to me between the check down Charlie thing. There's a difference between reading the 1, reading the 2, getting to the 3 very, very quickly, and then giving him room to run versus you're rolling out forever. You find a check down from a running back, and then he runs for extra yards. If you're getting to your check down very, very quickly and giving him time to run after the catch because of how quickly you went through your progressions, that's a good check down to me. Whereas you're talking about screens, stuff like that. Okay, it's not as impressive, but while he was hitting some checkdowns this game, they were still very impressive. And then he also had throws deep that were very, very nice. That throw to Elijah Moore was very, very nice. That was an absolute money throw.
You're talking about not the touchdown throw, but the other big throw, right?
Well, the touchdown throw was wide open. And that throw, he drifted a little bit. I think he drifted a little bit more than he should have, and he could have set his feet. And he used that pop step to keep himself balanced. And he really didn't have to. But
yeah, the throw was fine, but sometimes that's the type of stuff that's making Zach miss.
He completely fell over that throw. He was falling over himself. Yeah. But nonetheless, the throw to Elijah Moore was really, really good. The throw to Ty Johnson was good. I think Orlovsky put it out on Twitter, whichever. Sometimes I hate it because I see that I want to do it in review, and then people put it out, I'm like, shit, whatever. But the throw where he I think he looks to Garrett Wilson to his right, looks to I think it's Mims to his left. He sees a high safety over Mims. He looks to the intermediate, which is, I don't know if it's a dig or it's some intermediate route. I don't know if it's a dig or a corner or an out, whatever it was. Sees that's not open with, actually it was Uzama. Uzama checked and released, or shipped and released. Looked at Uzama, solely the linebacker was there, and then got to, I think, Bam Knight very, very quickly, hit him there. He was hitting checkdowns well. He had Elijah Moore on that throw.
What do you think about the second touchdown throw to Garrett Wilson, which wouldn't have been a touchdown if Eddie Jackson didn't get hurt, but the decision, because some people are saying, oh, well, it could have been a pick. It was the linebacker was right there, kind of went through his hands a little bit.
It was very, very close. He's got to be careful because to me,
Fred Warner picks that off, but
yeah,
I think a lot of linebackers don't.
It's hard to tell exactly because like the film can be grainy. It did look like it didn't even go over his hands. It looked like it went through his hands. So sketchy. And with that, I didn't love. So he only had a few bad plays, right? Like in terms of the bad plays, he had the ball that skipped to Ty Johnson, which he got caught by the turf monster. I go over that in review. His leg just buckles. He falls, so he can't throw that ball. He had the ball to Corey Davis on the right side. I think it was I don't know if it was like double slants. He reads the inside that hits Davis, but Davis he puts the ball too far behind Davis. He had the one ball to Garrett Wilson over the middle, where Garrett Wilson I think sees the coverage, wants to sit it down a little bit. They're off of their communication there, and then you had the ball over the middle to Garrett Wilson, which was sketchy. And on that read, I think I forget if it was it was Mims on an over, and then Garrett Wilson on a dig behind it or right outside of it. I think that's what it was. And he comes off of Mims, who's his first read, because that linebacker dropping back into the middle of the field. But the linebacker doesn't carry Mims, and Mims probably should have been the throw there because the linebacker doesn't carry Mims in the middle of the field, where I think Mike White thinks he's carrying with Mims. So he goes to Garrett Wilson behind him. So I don't think he saw that linebacker. Maybe he did. Give him the benefit of the doubt. He layered that ball over the linebacker. Great. But based on how that linebacker was dropping vertically, I think he should have thrown the ball to Mims. He throws it to Garrett Wilson. He gets there. Obviously, Garrett Wilson catches the ball. He said in his post game, like he saw the guy was down. So that's why he did what he did in terms of his yak, which, by the way, was a very nice yak. Like it wasn't just, he cut underneath him. Like he notices how far he is to his right and knows that he can't cut underneath him immediately because he'll give him too much room to adjust to his cut underneath. So he pushes vertical for 2 steps to get the safety or the corner to commit to going vertical with him to the left side, and then he undercuts him. So like he's very, very good at yak and setting up his angles. But yeah, there was only 3 or 4 plays from Mike White where like 2 missed one missed pass, one behind, the one ball to Garrett Wilson, which was a little bit sketchy, and then he also had the ball to Garrett Wilson over the middle, where Eddie Jackson almost picked it, where.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson actually kind of got in there and broke it up a little bit. I think.
And in the review, I say there's 2 things that it was. And I there are certain plays and certain things you could speak in absolutes. Like okay, there's certain things you can speak in absolutes. And that play, I kind of had two conclusions. It's either one, he had a supreme confidence in his arm, which okay is what it is, or he didn't see Eddie Jackson. Because I think on that play they're running. It looked like either Eddie Jackson just kind of not bid on it, but he shot his shot, or it was cover 3 replacement, which I think it was cover 3 replacement, where basically if you're gonna have an outside guy who's gonna run a quick route over the middle and over route, let's say, that deep third will drop off of him. The middle third will drop down to cut that off, and then the outside third will replace the middle third zone. And that's what it looked like to me. So they ran cover 3 replace, and I don't know if he saw Eddie Jackson there. So either he didn't see him, almost with a pick, or supreme confidence. Either way, not a great play from him there. But overall, we're talking about 3 or 4 bad plays and 28 dropbacks for him. So I was still impressed with all the other stuff. I didn't mean to get negative there, but that's kind of where we went. I talked for a while, Kyle, so go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think is the bigger problem, if he didn't see it or if he had the supreme confidence? I think I'd
rather have him have confidence than not see it. You could fix the confidence thing. Like, listen, dude, we're playing, manage it. We don't need to force the ball. Or if you don't see a defense, I think that's something that's harder to just say, we'll fix it.
I think he didn't see it, because I don't see how you could see that and still think that you could make that throw. Like, because I mean, Jackson was really breaking on that ball hard, so I think he just didn't see him. But yeah, I mean, just those little subtle things, like that one big first down, and I'm pretty sure it was on a 3rd down, if I'm not mistaken. Check down to Ty Johnson, or just little subtle pocket movement. He just slides ever so slightly, hits him in stride. I mean, to the point where Zach just couldn't hit these check downs. Like, if he could, sometimes he couldn't even hit the guy at all. Like, he's just sailing the ball over their head. And then sometimes when he is, hitting a check down, or forget if it's even a check down, it might be just like a design screen to begin with. He's throwing the ball too high or too low. He hits, and on that one play, Ty Johnson right in stride to the point where he can catch and turn up the sideline. I'm sorry, but there's so few examples this year where Zach was able to do that. So, and like Mike White,
or he's taking a check down too late, not getting that yak opportunity. Like, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kyle, but even that play, like talking about the pocket manipulation, like the play where he steps up in the pocket, and I think it's a sail concept to the right, and Conklin's wide open. He steps up in the pocket, hits Conklin pretty much right on his face, which was a nice play. You also had the play, which I think was 3rd and 6, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a 3-man concept again. I think it was a sail again. They ran sail a lot in this. They ran double slants a lot in this game. And he sees that the coverage is like it's like a 4 shell, where there's 2 guys. At least there's 2 guys over the top on the side of the concept. And off of that side, he sees 2 guys high, who are going to take away his 2 deeper routes. And there's a blitz off the right side, and he notices the blitz. And what does he do? Okay, there's 2 high defenders. There's a blitz off that side. Guess who's not picking up CJ Uzomah? Immediately, and then he hits Uzomah in stride and gives him an opportunity to run for 7-8 yards of yak and gets a first down on a check down on 3rd and 8. But it was like, oh, it's check down, yeah. But his process to get there was very, very good. Seeing off coverage, seeing the blitz, and finding his hot receiver or his hot option. So like he was impressive with his mental processing this game for sure. But sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a really small sample size, but what I think it's fair to say that we can say that we've seen from him in these games. And some people say like, well, he's got to cut down a little bit on the the scary, potentially turnover worthy plays. The thing to me that I actually excites me a little bit and think that there is a possibility that he could potentially be the long-term option is you don't want to be pathologically conservative. Now, I didn't come up with that term. I'm stealing that from somebody else. But when you look at guys like Alex Smith, I heard him as being labeled as pathologically conservative, like always looking to the check down, never taking the deep shots. And I think with Mike White, what's fair to say that we've seen in his 4 starts is that, he is obviously got to take the check downs when they're there, but he is still, trusting to take, shots when they're there, even if that means fitting it into a tight window, because windows are going to be tight in the NFL. And I've seen a good level of aggression from him to this point. Now, Zach was really aggressive in his rookie year. Sam Darnold was always aggressive in his entire tenure with the Jets. But the thing is oftentimes they read things wrong. And when you're very aggressive and you're reading things wrong, lots of turnovers. Mike White, as far as what I've seen, seems to process things a lot better than the both of those individuals have to this point. So I think you really have to like what you've seen, but we're definitely going to see a bigger test this week and even a bigger test the following week, because we saw what Buffalo did to him last year. Now, again, they don't have the secondary that they had several years or last year when they played him. But I think you have to be pretty happy with what you saw for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we actually have a question about that from Jacob. He says Buffalo game, he was hurt and tipped interception, which I almost want to go back and watch those interceptions again, just to like remind myself. And I say like, again, we watch thousands of plays. Sometimes you forget. Definitely forget. I'll record a play and then 2 hours later I'll forget, depending on my mindset watching the film. But in that game, like he threw a lot of his interceptions when they were down a lot. He was hurt, right? He got hurt in the Colts game and then came back versus Buffalo. And I think he got that was his last game. So you can argue, I'm not sure if it was 100% that he was hurt in that game. I don't remember the tipped one, but again, I forget some plays, but even if like, okay, one or two were not his fault, 2 were, whatever it may be, like it was one game regardless versus a good defense with not a lot of talent on offense when you're down by a lot early because the defense was sucking ass that game. So that can't be, oh, that's what Mike White is because of one game. Like he deserves a shot to have a bad game or two here and there, and not get benched. Like if he struggles this game, then he comes back out versus the Bills. Now
I can't remember who said it. Somebody said it on Twitter. It was a decent personality, like someone I think who's played in the league, and said something like, well, if Mike White was drafted 2nd overall and he had just one of those games like he had against the Bills last year, people would be saying like, oh, well, it's just one game. He's young,
I think it was Sherman was on that. Sherman's on that train where Sims has been on the train of everything's the Jets' fault and Jets fans' fault. Nothing's Zach Wilson's fault. So they're on complete opposite.
And here's the thing with Sims. Just as he was very high on Zach Wilson, as both you and I were, Zach Wilson was his number 1 quarterback, including over Trevor Lawrence. Now, both you and I didn't really scout Trevor Lawrence to the point because we knew the Jets weren't going to get him. So it wasn't really, it was kind of a waste of time for us to do it. Yeah. But when you have such a hot take like that, oh, Zach Wilson's better than Trevor Lawrence. You see Sims, I think he's kind of like one of these guys who, he loves Zach Wilson so much that you kind of got to stick to the narrative. And if that means,
you lose credibility. Like he's losing a lot of credibility with a lot of people. Like you see a lot of people who used to be like, oh, Matt Sims said this, Sims said this, or is it Chris or Matt? Chris Sims.
Yeah.
Like oh, he said this, that. Like now people on Twitter are like, dude, the guy fucking is an idiot. Like you have to be.
Matt Sims was the former Jets
I know.
quarterback.
You have to be able to adjust your opinion based on new evidence, right? Like we love Zach Wilson. The new evidence presented to us this season has not been good. Like Ty Johnson, we both talk shit about him. He played pretty fucking well this game, right? Like so we have to give him credit. You hated Bryce Huff and said they should have had him undrafted.
I did not hate Bryce Huff,
and
I did say I didn't think he was such a great athlete, and I was wrong about that. I was definitely wrong about that.
Look at that, Kyle. Holy shit. Quinnen Williams. Like there's things that we're gonna be wrong about. Even like I talk shit about Greg Dortch all the time. Greg Dortch is actually producing right now with the Cardinals. It took 5-6 years, whatever it was. But like if you're gonna die on a hill, you just lose credibility. Like it's just beyond dumb to die on that hill. And I get a certain I don't know.
Jalen Marshall never produced though.
But like Sims, like that one play that he put up on Twitter, he's talking about like, oh well, pre-snap that safety's there in the middle of the field, so he can't throw that ball. It's like, bro, pre to post snap, you have to check that safety, and he's squatting heavy. Like so he doesn't throw a post because he lined up there 5 seconds ago and the play wasn't happening. I don't know if you saw the review I did. I was like, dude, this is what Sims said. Like,
I haven't seen your Bears review yet. I just only
no, not the Bears one. The Pats.
Oh yeah. I saw that one.
Where I mentioned it because I saw that play. He's like, oh yeah, you can't throw this ball pre-snap because the middle of the field looks closed. I'm like, he's squatting, and the safeties of the Pats are known to squat, to bracket, to rob. So you should know that regardless, and you have to check it. Now, can you go pre-snap and see, okay, it's closed there, post-snap confirm it and come off of it a little bit quicker? Sure, but you can't say, shit, pre-snap he's there, fuck that, I'm not even looking there now. Like that's your argument? Like that's you really think that's going to fly? It's going to fly with 95% of people, not the 5% who know what they're talking about, because that's bullshit. So he has lost all credibility recently with me. Like it just new evidence,
yeah,
adjust to it. I don't know.
I don't know, man. Like it does make you lose credibility. It's just like, I don't know, like it reminds me of the thing that I said, and I haven't brought it up in such a long time, but the whole red pill, blue pill analogy. And it's like, going to the Matrix, the original Matrix film, when you take the blue pill, you're believing what you want to believe. Dude, you had him, you loved him pre-draft, right? There's so much flash there. There's so much swag there. Everybody knows it. We love Zach Wilson, man. We were so happy to get him. Like he actually, missing out on Trevor Lawrence. I was so hurt by that, man, winning that game in LA a couple of years ago. I was so hurt by that. But watching Zach Wilson and seeing that made me kind of, it lessened my pain so much, because I really, this kid, he's really, really, really talented, and I saw the Mahomes comparisons and stuff, and I said there is some truth to it. But I hate to say it, but it has not worked out to this point. But you have to, reassess, things afterwards. And, I think in his mind, he's believing what he wants to believe because of his pre-draft evaluation. But, you have to change information as it comes.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah. Do you want to hit anything more on Mike White, or you want to get back to the chat and then we'll go through?
I'm sure that we'll probably hit on him elsewhere as people ask questions about him, but we can probably move on from him.
Bam is Tony Pollard 2.0.
No. Bam's not different. Tony Pollard 2.0. I'm trying to think of a good comparison for Bam. Bam is he's not fast. He's not fast at all, but dude, he runs his legs through and after contact, man. He never stops turning those legs.
Yeah.
But Tony Pollard is quick and fast.
He's
man,
long
speed. So not a good comparison.
Gerald, how do you play Super Chats? I have no idea. I don't know. I think you have to have your Google Pay thing set up. Google Pay thing. On YouTube, I do see. Can I Super Chat myself? Let's see. I just did it.
Yourself.
There's. Oh, I have to confirm it with the side button. Yeah. Yeah. So on the bottom of the chat, there's a little money sign. You just do that. Was there? I don't know if I just. Let's see if it works. I think it worked. Let's see if it comes up. Which, Kyle, I think we had a super chat we might have missed, which you're failing at your job.
Oh, I forgot my job, Joe. Damn.
Yeah.
That one's on me, guys. Listen, it's my job, so I will make it. I will make amends, make it right, and I will get to that super chat. All right, from Dom C. Dom C. Thank you so much, Dom C. And my sincerest apologies for being so late. All right. Yep. So Dom says $4.99. Thank you, Dom, again. Might be nitpicking, but do you guys see issues with all of our wide receivers getting off the line versus press? Always see jab and drop steps that slow them up a bit. Well, Joe, you're more the receiver cornerback guy than I am, but if I can try to answer this a little bit first, and then you can elaborate further because you're better at that than me. Elijah Moore has always kind of struggled against press coverage, even last year, and on his college tape, there was not a lot of evidence of him really defeating it in college, and they moved him in a variety of ways where he didn't have to go against it a lot. Also, corners I think were scared of kind of like some of his speed and stuff, so they played off him a lot. But he also played in the slot and a good amount. Garrett Wilson, on the other hand, Joe Blewett pointed out a lot in his film reviews. He has got probably at least 3 hours worth of Garrett Wilson Ohio State film reviews. And you had mentioned on several occasions that he lets people get into his chest way too much, and it's a problem.
It happened this game too. Like I don't call them, I don't know, jab drop steps. I don't know exactly. I refer to those steps I think you're talking about are split and gather steps, which are different. But he does do that a lot, and there are times where he'll do that and sorry, I don't know you again, but like he'll raise his body and he's not able to adjust to press coverage as quickly. And with his releases, like he uses a lot of hop and skip steps where he's not necessarily attached to the ground. And if guys are aggressive and they shoot their hands when he's doing that, they will jam him up. And Kyle, that was one of the things. Like, and I sort of think like, well, not really, but like I was like maybe I'm like wrong with him because like everybody on Twitter is like, oh, his press releases are so great. I'm like, where are people getting this? Because I watched him for a whole year, and
it was to the point where Chris Nimbley, who's literally and I'm not trying to shit on him. I'm just trying to say, like, I don't really get where a certain portion of like this information was coming from. Like his Twitter handle is literally like, I believe Jets Insider. And he was saying that one of the reasons why the Jets drafted Garrett Wilson is because of his ability to defeat press coverage. And it's like, there's a lot of reasons to love Garrett Wilson. I mean, Joe was just hyping up before about how good he is at setting up his cuts, how good he is, with the ball in the air, making contorted catches and running after the catch. Like he's really good in those regards.
Ridiculous explosion.
But defeating press is not necessarily the strong suit. Now, like, think about his release that you saw against the Browns where he had the touchdown on the fade route. Mm-hmm. Think about one of his releases that he had against one of the Bills corner when he was like tight in the slot. There are some times when he really, like he bends his body in such weird ways and he throws really good head fakes and things like that. There's sometimes when he'll get you off the line of scrimmage, and if you try to jam him hard, there's a decent chance you'll miss. And if you miss, he's going to get a good amount of separation on you. But the thing is oftentimes when they connect with the jam, he's not so good at defeating it at that point.
Yeah. Now, could you draft him? Could you alter that statement and say they're drafting him for his? I'm not sure how to word this. Like his future ability to get off press. Like, does he have the explosion to defeat press in the future and his aggression? Yes. Was he money at that in college? Was that a strength of his? Absolutely not. Yeah. And I did plenty of plays where he's not stacking guys or he's letting guys get into his chest. But overall, like, listen, the guy the last couple of weeks he's on pace. If it was at least couple of weeks, like he's on pace to be like a 1,300 yard receiver the last couple of weeks.
Is it really that high?
Yeah.
Over the last couple of weeks.
Over the last couple of weeks. And there were some games that he was absent, the Packers game, the Broncos game, good defenses, struggling quarterback, etc. But like you're looking at a guy who I think at the bare minimum, and I would be disappointed with this, is at least 1,000+ yard receiver the next couple of years. And you're talking about a guy who could be a top 10 guy. So I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability to be better off of press in the future. Was that a strength of his coming out of college? No. And now we're talking about guys like Elijah Moore too, which I talked about in his review as well. With at Ole Miss, he rarely had to defeat press at Ole Miss, and we talked about that. Kyle was like, I wonder how he's going to be off press because he never saw it at Ole Miss. He was in the slot. They manufactured a lot of touches for him in the slot with off coverage, and he was great at it. Or what he did at Ole Miss, but it was not defeating press. So yeah, you're going to see Elijah Moore struggle versus press. You're going to see Garrett Wilson at times completely destroy it.
What's interesting about Elijah? Sorry, I get excited sometimes. What's interesting about Elijah Moore is like they've been putting him in the slot more than they have been in the first couple weeks of the season, but they're always playing him in like inverted slot where he's on the line of scrimmage, which I find interesting as opposed to playing him off where you can give him more of a running head start because it's harder for guys to stay up with him once he's already able to get in phase. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I feel like that's a little coaching thing that it'd be a little bit better if they played him off a little bit.
So in general, yes, Tom. Like you had two guys who weren't the best at it in college. One guy who showed he wasn't the best at it.
Can we also talk about Can we also talk about Denzel Mims for a moment too, since he's worked his way into the offense more? I literally I want to read something I wrote in my notes when I was watching this game.
Okay.
Quote: I hate the Mims to Stephen Hill comparison. but we've seen a little bit of it in the last 2 years. Stone hands, body catching, somewhat slight frame, yet tall, and trying to get too physical into route rather than using a good release. It works when you are big and strong as Brandon Marshall, but not when you have their type of body frame. Right? Like I've seen it too much times over this season and the past season where Denzel Mims, like, he gets really physical, like when he blocks guys and like he goes in for the kill shots and stuff. And on the one hand, I love it, but sometimes, like, rather than like, like throwing like an actual like good release or whatever, he tries to get too physical with guys and just like manhandle them, like the way that Brandon Marshall would do with corners.
That's what he did on the slant versus the Bills.
Yeah, but it doesn't really work for the most part, though. Works when you're 6'4", 230 and an absolute beast like Brandon Marshall.
Yeah. The Pats game, his blocking was a little bit more suspect. This game is actually pretty good. But the thing that frustrated me again was like you and this is why it's so hard to predict sometimes. Like you have him at Baylor, who's making ridiculous catches outside of his frame consistently, and then this year he can't catch a ball without it hitting his chest first. Like how many times is he gonna jump and let a ball hit his chest and fall into his hands? Like that catch over the middle it looked terrible. It looked like a kid who's 8 years old trying to catch a football. Like so,
I don't get it. Like,
but he's good at blocking, but his receiving and his releases, his routes have not been good. So Mims has gotten his chance, and he's not been like, minus blocking, he's not been excelling at the receiver position. So and last week was more frustrating. Like I think he had a drop, he had another pre-snap penalty, but he has penalties, he has dropped, he body catches, his routes aren't great. So yeah, you're bringing him in to be a solid blocker, but that's not what we drafted him in the second round for. So while he's producing somewhat, like this is, there are people out there who like want to make this like the Mims explosion onto the scene, but it has been pretty short of an explosion.
So hopefully we made up for answering your super chat so late, Dom, with the detailed answer. Okay, Joe,
right.
Get back. Oh, wait, we got another super chat too. Everaldo de Jesus said, "Hola," with an exclamation mark, $2. Thank you so much, Everaldo. I hope we're pronouncing your name right too.
Everaldo, I think so.
And Joe, we did get your Joe Blewett 199.
Look at that.
You couldn't give it an extra penny, Joe?
It was just set at 199, so
okay.
That's our first super chat ever. So I appreciate you guys reading it live. I'm so happy. So let's see. Going down a little bit more. Will Bam Knight get 100 yards in this game? I don't know. It's now at the running back position. Michael Carter is going to be out this game most likely. And again, I know he's a fan favorite, and I love Michael Carter. Michael Carter has been a little bit disappointing this year to me. I liked what I saw from him better in his rookie year in terms of breaking tackles and making something out of nothing. This year, not as much. And he's going to be out this game anyway. So I think it's a steady dose of Ty Johnson, Bam Knight, maybe James
he's
Robinson's
definitely
active.
out. I didn't hear that news.
He didn't practice today, and he sprained his ankle, right? So I don't think so. But I could see it. I could see him getting 100 yards, and with Bam Knight. Just getting into him, like you're talking about a guy who, and I'll give a lot of credit to the offensive line. I think this game was more offensive line blocking for the running backs and creating yards than it was the running backs creating on their own. With that being said, Bam rarely got brought down by the first tackler, and if he did, he felt the thump. So, and I think this stat is it's either 103 or 104 all-purpose yards for Bam Knight, which is the highest for a rookie in their debut for the Jets and in the history of the Jets. So. Hell of a game for Bam Knight. Michael Carter was pretty disappointing. 6 rushes, 19 yards off the top of my head, injured. And then Ty Johnson, he had a good game in pass pro, undeniably good game in pass pro. And then that one run where was it an outside? I think it was an outside zone, and he's like shaking off a tackle. He's kind of falling off to his left, and then decides to reaccelerate and get up the field. His acceleration off of 1 foot there is absurd. It was like, and that's the thing. Like
that was the best run of his career.
When we talked about Ty Johnson in the past, it was never. We never questioned his athleticism. It was pass protection. It was dropping balls. But we've always said the guy is he's physical. Like and he was trucking guys this game. He has really good speed, really good acceleration. So if anything, he's more Tony Pollard than a Bam Knight is. But like that acceleration off that cut was something you don't see very often. So Ty Johnson had a hell of a game too. So but will Bam get 100 yards? If I had to bet, probably no. But I'll hope for it.
Yeah, I don't think so. But listen, Bam Knight, I mean, I can definitely see why the Jets decided to make James Robinson a healthy scratch. And there's another reason too. If James Robinson doesn't get a certain amount of yards, that's a higher draft pick for the Jets. So I do not
Sorry, I don't understand how he cut that quickly up the field. That is
I don't know.
absurd, man.
And by the way, this stiff arm that he throws on, I believe it's 37. He
Yeah.
also trucks this dude late in the game too on the Jets' last drive. Trucks the shit out of him. So
Do I have that play? I wonder if I have that play. I think I do. Did that guy bring him down, but he trucked him? Is that play?
He might have, but dude, you know,
It might be this.
Yeah,
play.
it's this one. It's this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If he goes down, you're feeling it. So this is a guy who we didn't want to make the roster right now. I'm glad he's on the roster. Like he's running hard. He's blocking better. That he has some ridiculous athleticism in some areas. So happy he's here. So I think it's a split. Is that what you see, like 50-50 with Bam and Ty this game, or do you see James Robinson?
And it could be ride the hot hand too. Like if one of them is running better than the other one, then you go
like
with
true
that
San
guy.
Fran system. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
what do you think happens with James Robinson? Is he a guy who's going to be active?
Well, if Michael Carter's definitely not playing, then you have to have 3 running backs active. So yeah, but
he just hasn't been impressive when he's been playing.
There were some decent runs in that Buffalo game, but he looked really slow in that Patriots game. Really did. And he looked kind of slow in the Bills game too. But the thing is he did get a little bit lucky on one of those runs where, especially when they were backed up on the goal line where the Bills defenders kind of over pursued and he bounced off the one offensive lineman. But I mean, like the one thing you could say about him,
he tripped and like naturally like brought his head down and he came over his head and yeah.
The thing you could say about him is like he does get north and south and he's always falling forward, a la Bilal Powell. But I mean, like if you're looking for a guy to break off a long run like you just saw with Ty Johnson, I mean, you can forget about it. Where Bam Knight, I mean, like he looks to have the fresher legs and stuff. And if I think that what you get with Robinson, the power, the guy who's going to run through tackles and punish some of those defenders and, make them think twice before, shooting in like a bat out of hell, you're getting the same thing with Bam Knight that you would get with Robinson. We did get some more super chats.
And if they don't run Bam more, like they save, a 5th to a 6th round pick, which I don't think is going to be a bad move. So if these guys are running better,
I have to imagine that that's part of the decision too there.
Well, then like he came out and it's like he's pissed he's not playing. When the running backs coach I think came out and said like, yeah, like we want players who are pissed when they're not playing, but like then play better. Like at the end of the day, play better. Like,
play better.
His knees. I think his knees more jacked up than they anticipated. But go ahead with the super chat and I'll get into.
It's also like I mean, I get the whole James Robinson. I'm pissed. I want to play. I get the whole that. I don't know that it's the best to go out in the media and say that. Period.
No.
But especially after both the other running backs that you think you should be getting playtime over balled out this past game. It's just the timing of it's not great based on that reason.
Just keep
so we got another one from Everaldo where he said, wow, you said my name perfectly. Well done.
Everaldo. Okay, now go ahead with the last name since he said the first name perfect.
De Jesus.
Okay.
There you go, Joe. Come on.
Look at that. Appreciate it. Appreciate Kyle saying it right.
And we got another one too. From Taps Any Button, $4.99. It is odd to see mainstream media saying Mike White doesn't have a strong arm, but when he was known for a strong arm coming out of college, he was a pitcher. And I think somebody else said somewhere in the chats that Mike White as a pitcher was throwing like 90 miles an hour or something like that. I have no idea if that's true. I didn't even know he was a pitcher until until I saw some of these chats tonight.
Different throwing motion.
Yeah, I mean, like he can definitely put some heat on the balls too. Like that one throw that we were talking about was I think the word used was sketchy. The Garrett Wilson touchdown, the second touchdown. I mean, that ball that went in there with a good amount of zip. So I think it's at least a decent arm. I don't think it's a strong arm.
Yeah. That's for sure. It's definitely not strong, but I would say it's decent and it's better than it was to me last year. Like he put more heat on the ball this year than last year, but this is obviously a small sample size. And I forget exactly what I thought about him last year, but it's not a weak arm, that's for sure. But I think having a middle tier arm is fine. But at the end of the day, like we'll give credit to Zach Wilson here. Like he doesn't have a Zach Wilson arm. That is for sure. But I don't think it's. I think people think he throws balls like I don't know who has a really weak arm. I came in. I don't know. Jimmy Garoppolo.
A really weak arm as a starter. Yeah, he's certainly up there as one.
So like I don't think it's like that. I think he's like a middle tier arm, which is fine. And obviously pitching and throwing a football are completely different. I know people who play baseball can't throw a football for shit, so it doesn't necessarily always translate. With that being said,
broadcast this past week, I know you didn't watch it. I know you were at the game. Was it Trent Green? But whoever it was on the broadcast team was like hyping up, because they always sit down with certain players, pregame, and some of the players were hyping up and saying that, Mike White throws a very catchable ball. And I think there is a lot to that. Now, there's a lot of things that go into that. Like, okay, like one of the things about Zach Wilson's balls, I mean, not only sometimes are they 5 yards over your head and they're coming in, at a way higher speed than you're anticipating from where he's throwing it from, but sometimes too, like his spirals are really wobbly. Really wild.
I was gonna say, and Mike White has a nice spiral.
Exactly. And that makes it easier to catch a football, especially in the rain and things like that too. So I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's not all about, zinging it in there like a rocket. Like, dude, if you're throwing it, like a rocket, but it's really off target and it's wobbling. I mean, like, how good is that? How good is that from, you don't want to utilize guys' strengths like Elijah Moore, his ability to transition from catch to run. But if he's got to like corral the ball in a certain way and it's behind him and stuff, I mean, anyway, so
you're not used to catching a wobbly ball. Like a perfect spiral brings into your hands perfectly. And I think Zach Wilson, like, does he have the ability to take some heat off the ball? I think so. I don't think he's incapable. I think that comes from him not being confident in his reads. Like, he sees a guy go, "Oh, I gotta get it there," like really quick. Like he doesn't trust himself enough to take some heat off that ball. But nonetheless, thank you for the super chat. Taps any button. Rusty is saying, do we have the option of trading Corey Davis? They have the option. Should they? I don't see trading a guy like Corey Davis for who I think is worth his $12-ish million contract. Now what happens if they have, I don't know, a third round pick at receiver who's really lighting it up? Like maybe that's something we could talk about. Any receiver I'd be willing to trade over. I would be, listen, people are gonna hate this, but like Braxton Berrios, is he worth $7 million right now? For what he's doing? I don't know. He hasn't been great in the return. He's been okay in the return game. He's a couple of end around and stuff that I don't think that Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore are incapable of doing. Like, we knew that was an overpay, and it's kind of showing out right now. He's not really doing much of anything. So I'll get rid of Braxton Berrios for Aaron Davis to save some money. I think if they got rid of Berrios, it'd be like $5 million in savings, 2 in dead. I know Corey Davis there's like nothing in dead. It's like 12 or 13 savings. But then what your receiving core is you have Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Berrios as your 3. Like, why are we going to down that? You're talking about, at best an okay group there. So
I know a lot of people want to move on from Corey Davis for several reasons, and one of the reasons is he's been a little bit hurt. But you saw how much the offense struggled when he was hurt, and how it like did improve when he came back. So I don't think that's the move that you make. If you're starting to prepare for a contract extension for Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore, and you need to free up some money from them, then it kind of makes sense. But you're not at that point, so I wouldn't do that.
Yak is your RB term. I think a lot of people say Yak. Am I the only guy?
Yak is, dude. I mean, like you could play Madden 05 and be very familiar with what.
I like when people say rack though. When people say rack, I get annoyed. Everybody says Yak.
What does rack mean?
Run after catch.
Okay, yeah, I don't.
Rack. It's like
I'm not familiar with people using that.
So, let's see. Curious to see how he'll do. Yeah, it'll be. I think it's the toughest test of the year left. Right? Is the Bills game in Buffalo.
Bills game in Buffalo. Let's see. Yeah, Lions shouldn't be a really tough test.
Not on the road. If it was at Ford Field, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But yeah, I know the Jags beat the Ravens at home. But with them both being on the road or home games, like yes, they should win. Momo, Joe, do you ever hear Joe? You blew it a lot in like 3rd grade. And like from the people who are like think they're funny, like the first time interacting with me, like Joe, you blew it. I'm like, dude, I've literally heard that 47,000 times. Like, call it something new and I'll laugh, But yeah, sure. It builds character. You either sink or swim very quickly in life with a last name like that. So you don't really have the option of hiding from that. That is for sure. Especially when you have an older sister who goes to the same school as you. You know. So it that kind of interesting when I was a kid. Let's see. White seems to feel the pressure well, but like most of the O-line needs to be decent. I think that goes with every quarterback, right? Not the O-line.
I think what he's saying is that like someone like Russell Wilson, who always had a shitty offensive line in Seattle, he still excelled because he can make things happen with his legs and make off-platform throws and scramble outside the pocket and make crazy trick plays on broken plays. Whereas like Mike White needs to operate from the pocket in order to be successful.
Momo, another comment. Joe and Kyle, are you saying that Zach was your man all along? Did you notice his footwork? Zach was our guy, undoubtedly. And yes, we noticed his footwork. His footwork was a problem at BYU. The thing it was almost like Darnold's, like where it would affect him 1 out of every 10 throws, where now it seems like it's affecting him every other throw, in the NFL. So, it wasn't. It was a slight concern, but it wasn't something so drastic that he was just missing throws. Like Zach Wilson was dotting it up outside the numbers in college, and now he can't throw a check down sometimes, throwing over guys' heads and all that. So you noticed it, but it wasn't something that showed up enough to really be overly concerned. Like there are guys who don't have great mechanics until you get the ball there. It's when it starts to become a mental game, then it only extrapolates when you have bad mechanics. But yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many I know there's a lot of people who turn into the live streams that aren't necessarily members of jetsxfactor.com. And this should be maybe a reason why you should join the website, and you get the first month free if you do sign up. Go into the archives because it's all there. If you didn't watch some of Zach Wilson's college film, you really owe it to yourself. Yeah, there were problems with the footwork, but I mean, dude, like just look at some of the ridiculous throws that he made. And Joe probably has about, I would say, maybe 8 hours worth of film review of Zach Wilson's BYU college tape.
Yeah.
And there was so many ridiculous throws, hitting throws outside the numbers and stuff. I mean, like, yeah, you could say like there are some fundamental problems with his game and some things he needed to clean up. But I mean, you'd be lying to yourself if you said like there is not like some really ridiculous stuff on tape, some natural talent that you can't teach. So there was a lot of reason to be happy about the Jets getting him.
The Mike White Bills game from Week 10 last year should have someone do an all-22 breakdown. I'm like 99% sure I already have, so you can just go back and watch it from then. I don't remember what I said, but
you can also see that on jetsxfactor.com.
Sure. Let's see. Kyle and Joe F and Blewett, keep up the great work, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Hey Felt from Verge. Hey fellas, Mike White's throws looked a lot better, a lot more zip, and not as floaty as last year, in my opinion. Maybe his eyes just suck and he's always threw fine. No, I'd agree with that. It's hard to like always. I'd have to compare one for one, but it did seem like the ball had some more heat on them in this game. So, Kyle, Joe is bringing up some harsh points. You're the Jets X Factor D-line guru, and you have been disparaging of Q and Huff. All right, not ideal.
I have. If you want to use the word disparaging for Quinnen Williams, I'll accept that. Because if it's saying like, dude, is he elite? Should he be in the same breath as someone like Aaron Donald? Like, for example, dude, Jeffrey Simmons, Titans defensive lineman, who's also been a beast. Like, Joe always granted me over the years, like, okay, Aaron Donald, Kyle, I get your point. He's in his own game, and nobody should be compared to him. But then, like, I would say, okay, well, look at someone like Chris Jones. And Joe would give me a little bit of pushback and say, yeah, well, Chris Jones gets beat in the run game sometimes and stuff. I was like, I don't know, man. When I watch Chris Jones, I see him dominate all the time. And I would say, like, Simmons, I might not watch as much as him, but he seems to be more dominant than Quinnen Williams. In my opinion, like, Quinnen Williams, up until this year, was not on those guys' levels. He just wasn't. And I know that he dealt with some injuries and stuff. He's on a completely different level this year. So if you want to say I disparaged him, that's fair. I think my point always was I like him, but he's not living up to the draft hype yet.
So
and now he has. Now he has. And I hope that I am, righting my wrong and admitting that I was wrong, unlike Chris Sims. Huff, I definitely said, I'm fully transparent about this. Joe Blewett did a film review of Bryce Huff. I was watching all Joe Blewett's film reviews. And I didn't have access to a lot of college all-22 at the time. So I didn't watch any Bryce Huff myself. And Joe put out a film review of Bryce Huff. And I was like, he's an undrafted free agent. I haven't heard of him. And I went and did like a Twitter search and I was searching his name, Bryce Huff. And really nothing was popping up. So I was like, this guy might not even make the roster. So I never watched Joe Blewett's film review of Bryce Huff. And then I started watching him like, his first year with the Jets, which was, I believe, in Adam Gase year, if I'm not mistaken. And, like I saw something and I did say, listen, I don't think he's such a great athlete. And I was wrong about that because he is a pretty good athlete. And you can see that in his get off. He's got I don't know how it stacks up to so many different edge rushers across the league. I know the numbers say that his get off is like top tier, but then again, he also plays a lot less snaps than some of these other guys. So I wonder how much that factors into it, but his get off is like really legit. He also has like a set of like, he's got like, I would say like a decent set of pass rush moves and stuff. Like his double swipe move is really good. He's pretty damn good at bending off the edge and stuff. He throws a spin move every now and then. So there's, he's on the shorter side. He definitely has shorter arms and stuff, but, I was definitely wrong about that, but also give credit to Bryce Huff because he's gotten a lot better over the years too.
Yeah. Something going back on a completely different point because I'm trying to catch up in the chat. People were saying about Mims, and I was going to say this and I completely forgot. I do think Mims is bigger and stronger than Stephen Hill. To be completely fair, I know you didn't make that statement quite a while ago, but Jordan Victor, I feel Bam and Tyre overrated. Let's see if they have a few good games with us. Yeah, who is overrating them? You know, like if people think they're absolutely dominant guys, like no, I think they're proving to be solid backups right now. And again, I when you watch that game, the offensive line, dude, which we'll talk about a little bit, we have to start running through the actual like position groups and just kind of hitting on them quickly. But we'd like to hit the chat. 230 people in here, by the way. We appreciate that, obviously. Mike White game, blowing out the Bears, big game against the Vikings. That's more exciting than talking about, you know, the Jets getting beat 10-3 in Foxborough. So viewers always go up. So we appreciate all you guys for coming here. But we have to run through some of that stuff too. But yeah, maybe some people are overrating him, but like it's one game, you know. But obviously when you see Zonovan Knight come out and he breaks the Jets all-time all-purpose yardage mark for a rookie in their first game, like yeah, people are gonna get excited, you know. And dude, and I said this in the review too, like obviously he hasn't been taking contact like all the other running backs in the NFL, so he should come out and run hard as hell, especially for a UDFA who's trying to prove himself. But like he was trucking dudes, consistently turning his feet. Like he did really well. With that being said, I think the offensive line did quite a good job for him. What happened to James Robinson starting? He hasn't been producing well, and I think his knee problem is a bigger issue than the Jets anticipated it being. Like you can see it, you see it consistently kind of pop up. So at the end of the day, like do you and we were talking about like, oh, how do we sign him back next year? At the end of the day, they have Brees, they have Michael Carter next year. What's Ty Johnson's contract? But like next year, if we walk into the season, Brees, Carter, Ty, and Zonovan, do we really need James Robinson back for $2-3 million, whatever it would cost to re-sign him? Why? You know. So at this point, I'm thinking he's not going to be on the team next year, which is what it is, right?
Yeah, and dude, and Bam Knight was even pretty damn impressive in the preseason too. Like, you know, remember that touchdown run he had against the Giants, right? Like we're seeing a pattern here, like where this dude, like, he doesn't give a shit about his body, right? Like he's willing to lay it all on the line. So there's something to like there. And right now he's shown more than James Robinson has. So, you know, honestly, like who cares if we don't have James Robinson? But I still like having him on the team, but I'm just saying, like, if we have to lose him, I mean, you know, so be it. We did get another super chat, although he doesn't say anything. We still appreciate it very much. Chris Style, 199. Thank you, Chris.
Did he make a comment under that? Maybe he just forgot to put the words in.
I don't see it.
Stronger than Pennington? What, Mike Whitethorn? Yeah, I would say that, especially after Pennington had
definitely post surgery.
All those injuries. Yeah, his arm completely fell off. Like it went from like okay to bad. But if you could put Zach Wilson's ability in Chad Pennington, we're cooking. You know, it is, you know.
Yeah, you're talking like
back as
you're talking like maybe all-time great. Yeah, if you could. Yeah.
Well, let's fuck it. If we're gonna do that, why not put Chad Pennington's or Peyton Manning? Let's combine Peyton Manning with Lamar Jackson. Now we're really cooking. Now we're really talking. Or I guess would you say? I guess Peyton or Tom, right? Like either one of those guys' mental processing. I don't know who you're gonna take. I guess Tom, right? Clutch factor too. So, can we see? I don't know. You're talking about the chat or us? Can we see how Mike White plays against an actual pass rush before considering him a long-term option? I don't think we're considering him a long-term option. At this point, I would still say at this very moment, I think the Jets starting quarterback in 2023 is not on the roster. With that being said, if Mike White balls out for the next, 7 games, the Jets are going to have a hard decision to make. That's going to be, I'm never going to know where I'm going to fall in that, Kyle. Like if he plays well these next couple of games against some bad pass or pass defenses, like, do you do it? Do you not do it? What if he walks the table? Listen, takes his balls out, puts them on the table. I want $25 million a year. I played really well. Some other teams going to give it to me. Do you do that?
This is all the more important reason why we need to make the playoffs. So he gets at least one extra game and hopefully more just tape to evaluate him too. And then hopefully against better defenses. Well, I say hopefully against better defenses, but I want to win those damn games. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah. But I mean, like shit, if we get 7 games of Mike White and he's demanding $25 million a year. You're only kind of lukewarm. Like you see some good games where like, oh wow, he could be good. And then there's some games where he shits the bed. Like that's tough. I don't know what you do with that, but we'll see. We're going to take it week by week.
good point by Hawk. Corey Davis is one of the reasons why our run game works, and that wasn't more evident than when he was out and we struggled a bit. Yeah, no, he's great. He's a great run blocker. He was great this week as well. So good point by Hawk. Corey, Zach Wilson will be a Hall of Famer. That would be an all-time turnaround. I think for him to turn around from where he's at now to being average would be a ridiculous turnaround. But he's up there with like some of like the Jamarcus Russells in terms of like completion percentage against expected and all that stuff. Like, it's not good. Listen, at the end of the day, do I want Zach Wilson to come out and be a Hall of Famer? Fuck yeah, I do. Based on evidence presented, do I think that's going to happen? Actually not. So, yeah, I guess Corey's trolling a little bit. He's going to be better than Brady, all this stuff, whatever, stupid. What are your thoughts on the optimum offensive line?
I think he's saying like, what is the best options? Like, what's the best starting offensive line? Does he mean in the future, like when everybody's healthy, or with what we definitely have that's healthy now and could be healthy this season? I think that's what he's meaning.
Yeah, I guess listen, like Max Mitchell was good last game. That am I going to take right now? If you tell me healthy Fant versus Max Mitchell, it's probably just take the line that you have now and put Fant at right tackle. But Jets not 6-4 without Zach. No, they're 8-2. You know, or they're 9-2 without Zach. You know, now maybe you can argue maybe the Steelers game. You know, but past that, like when and the first 3 quarters he was bad. The last quarter he was good, but we wouldn't have been in the situation we were in the fourth quarter without had the way he played in the first 3 quarters. So, you know, you can argue that maybe he won us a game. He did not win us the Packers game. He did not win us the Broncos game. He did not the Bills game. He was decent, but Mike White couldn't have done that. Like his processing showed.
He definitely didn't win you the Dolphins game.
You know, the Dolphins game. It was Breece Hall taking a wheel route for 70 yards. Like past that, he didn't really do too much. So, yeah, I think. You're taking this like, oh, they're, you know, Zach got them to 6-4. No, the defense and the running game got them to 6-4. If you think it was Zach, Jessica, you're hearing a lot. I think you're crazy though. If that's your take. So
we did get another super chat 199 from Broward County Reciprocity Mission. Talk about Herbig, and with a heart eyes emoji. Boy is a monster. Herbig definitely. You know, one thing I noticed about him is he definitely like. I wouldn't say like he plays whistle to whistle, but like the thing about him is like when he gets both his hands on you and he makes good contact with you and he hits you like with a good, you know, like center position, like if he's not hitting you off balance, he's going to stay locked on you. Like he's like, you know, sometimes people use the expression clamps to like describe like a corner. Well, like he's kind of like clamps, like, you know, you're gonna have a really tough time shaking him off when he gets his, you know, his big oven mitts around you.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about Herbig?
He's been impressive. Like I think he's showing himself to be, at least when he's been playing this year, like an average level starter, which is great. Like for a guy who they got off the scrap heap, right? Like that's gonna be an interesting situation what they do with him next year, because, you know, obviously you have Tomlinson at left guard. Connor McGovern we'll talk about in a little bit. I hope he's back. Kyle's watching like porn on his phone or something. The right guard, you're just like looking down, you're like smiling. I don't know what you're doing, but the right guard is, you're assuming it's ABT, but like Herbig, he's gonna come into the office, into Joe Douglas's office, right, and be like, listen, like I played well, I produced on tape. I'm not gonna be a backup. Like, is he gonna accept a backup role next year, Kyle? Probably not. So I think he's probably one and done with the Jets. I think he's one and done.
Yeah, because
are you watching the Devils game, Kyle? What are you watching on your phone over there?
No, that's interesting that you say that though, because I might be going to Devils Rangers in sometime in this month. I forget. It's on a Monday this month.
Nice. Yeah,
Madison Square Garden.
Devils barely squeaked it out versus the Rangers like a couple days ago, but they won. Devils are the second best team in the NHL right now, probably them and the Bruins. So it's fun to watch them play. Let's see. Mike White had a nice touch in the rain, not an easy thing to do consistently. Mike White didn't blame the weather. He did find the weather, you know. And it was I forget how windy it was because the rain was whipping. I don't know if the rain was whipping or not, but still that sucked. Like that was the wettest Jets game I've ever been to. And I'm at the point, like, I don't know how you feel about weather, Kyle, but I'm a guy, like, if it's going to be like 40 to 50 and raining, it might as well just be 30 and snowing. Like at that point, like, I'd rather be snowy than wet rain, cold, wet, windy rain. But it was fun. I don't know if I've ever been to a snow game. I really want to go to a snow game.
I definitely have not been to a pro snow game. Well, actually, I take that back. Were you at the 2009 Falcons Jets game?
No.
Okay. I went to that one. Now, I don't know if it was actually snowing during that game, but there was a ton of snow leading up to the game. So there was a lot of snow in the parking lot and
Was that
tons of
the
snow
game that
mounds.
Sean Ellis threw the snowball?
No, that was the
Everybody?
Seahawks game during the Brett
Seahawks.
Favre year.
Seahawks. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Yep.
The 2009 Falcons game was a late season game. Obviously, it was in December, very snowy. There was one touchdown that the Jets had. It was a long bomb from Mark Sanchez to Braylon Edwards. The ball probably hung at least, I would say, 45 to 50 yards in the air. It was probably one of Sanchez's better deep balls of his entire career. That one and the other Braylon Edwards one in 2010 and the comeback win against the Texans. But the Jets offense was absolute dog shit that game. No surprise. And the Falcons managed to score a late game touchdown to, I believe, Tony Gonzalez. And I think they won 10-7. And at that point, the Jets had dropped to 7 losses, I believe. I believe they were 7-7. And Rex Ryan went and said post-game press conference that, we're out of the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. But he was wrong because they still did have a shot, but they had to win in Indianapolis and against Cincinnati at home. And they needed a lot of other shit to happen for them to make the playoffs. And they did. And the rest is history.
Well, it's not like when that's like the whole like Darrelle Revis versus Ocho Cinco thing where
Yes.
guaranteed, yeah, and then
Fireman Ed, he's talking shit to Ocho Cinco on Twitter and stuff back when he had a Twitter account.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Does Zach
Ocho
have the
Cinco's
yips?
talking shit back?
Yes, he does have the yips. Joe, would you rather play ABT right guard next year or keep Herbig and move ABT left tackle? I'm keeping ABT at right guard. I'm not trying to bounce him around. And again, I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be an all pro level guard where he could be a very solid to even pro ball tackle. But I rather keep him at his best position, which is right guard. Now I get the benefactor of that being like, okay, well, you get to keep Herbig and that's another solid starter, but then where's Dwayne Brown playing? Is Dwayne Brown retiring? Because then he's going to be an $11 million backup. So but just based for ABT, regardless of Herbig, like you want to play a player at his best spot, especially considering the investment they made into him, and hopefully he's a guy who's going to be here for quite a few years.
I think there's no doubt that we can say that ABT this season when he was playing was our most valuable player on the offensive side of the ball mostly because of his versatility, but there's no question that he was not as good at tackle as he was at guard, which is natural. I mean, he is more of a guard. That's what we drafted him to be and stuff, but the ceiling with him playing tackle is limited, right? He doesn't go, what was he a 14th overall pick? He doesn't go at 14 if they draft him as a tackle.
Yeah.
Could he be drafted in the second round as a tackle? Maybe. But when you're talking short arm length and stuff, there's not too many tackles in the league that are really, really good with the arm length that he has. I mean, he's just built more to be a guard. So you have to keep him there. You drafted him, you traded up to get him, took him, 14th overall and gave up whatever you gave to be a potential Pro Bowl, all pro guard, not a tackle. Now, don't get me wrong. His versatility is definitely something that you liked and that went into the scouting report. And that is another reason why you draft him, because injuries happen all the time on the offensive line. Shit happens. Zach Martin, who, he's been a Pro Bowl player every single year he's entered the league, I believe. And even in emergency situations, they put him at tackle. So shit like that happens. So it's another reason why you want to draft a player, but it's not the reason why you draft him.
Dakota's a very nice and positive Jets fan. And I'm not going to shit on you here, Dakota. I'm just going to say, if you had to, just do not die in this hill. That's all I'm going to say. Do not die in the Joyner is nice for us too hill. Is Dwayne Brown going to start if Fant's coming back? I think Fant is either a backup swing tackle or he starts at right tackle. I think Dwayne Brown stays at left tackle. ABT can be an elite left tackle. I disagree, but that is what it is.
Somebody brought up a counterpoint to what I said and said Rashawn Slater has the same arm length as ABT, which is admittedly a very good point. So it kind of makes me look dumb, but again, it is the exception, not the norm. And I didn't scout Rashawn Slater, and I don't believe that you did either, Joe. So I'd be willing to know what else is different about their skill sets and stuff.
Yeah, so. That's something I have to go back and really watch. Joe Campione, Brown, ABT, McGovern, Herbig, Mitchell as a starting five. I think it's possible that could be Well, no, because no. So Tomlinson he's owed a lot of money guaranteed. They're not getting rid of Tomlinson. So it's gonna be Brown, Tomlinson, McGovern, AVT, and then Mitchell. I think is a shot to start a right tackle next year. But with that being said, where does Becton fit in? Do they sign another tackle? Like, I'm not necessarily comfortable. If we walk into next year with our tackles, let's just say the three are Brown, Mitchell, and Becton. Like, okay, but I'm kind of concerned because Becton hasn't shown to be healthy. Then you have Brown and Mitchell. Brown is going to be 39 years old next year, and Mitchell, yeah, I think this was probably his best game. I was definitely impressed with him this game, like legitimately impressed. Where the other games, when we talk about being impressed, it's relative to expectations. This game, I was just impressed in general, but he has to really ball out the next couple of games, or really, not I'm saying ball out, but he has to play pretty well the next couple of games, next 7 games for me to say, okay, Mitchell, you're starting right tackle next year, So, but Tomlinson's not going anywhere. I severely doubt that. But yeah, no, Rashawn Slater, and like Kyle said, that's more of the. What is it like? It's not the norm.
The
so
exception,
you don't
not the norm.
Exception, not the norm. That's the terminology. So, Joyner missed that one tackle Sunday. It got me a bit heated, but the rain was heavy. Joyner misses a lot of tackles. Joyner, like I think 90 just put up an article about their tackling too. Joyner, Whitehead, miss a ton of tackles for safeties, which is something you do not want.
Now, Joyner, I mean, Whitehead every now and then can obviously lay an absolute dude out and potentially even cause a forced fumble. Whereas Joyner doesn't really give you any of that. But yeah, Joyner misses a ton. And dude, go back and watch Blewett's film review of when he was with the Raiders, man. Oh my God. It was ugly at times, really ugly.
Yeah. When will the Jets ever learn to the thing like this is a Zach okay, yeah, this is a Zach Wilson's a Hall of Famer guy, but like at the end of the day, Josh Johnson comes in throws for 300 yards. Mike White throws for 300 yards multiple times. Like, are they ruining Zach, or is Zach ruining himself? And I don't think he's doing himself any favor in the locker room. Like, you clearly told the guys, you saw that guys are a little bit upset with him. Now, did he apologize to the team? Yeah, great, whatever. But you get the vibe that he might be. I'm not gonna say that. Maybe he's just not one of the boys. Where Mike White's.
I don't know how much I believe in that, man. Like, I feel like the people vibed with him and stuff. I remember like when he made that sidearm throw in training camp, and Elijah Moore was on Instagram saying Swaggy Z, and obviously he took them all to Wayne Gretzky's, getaway place, wherever the hell that was. I feel like the players liked it, but the thing is too, when you play shitty, players will turn on you. They want to win. And it's not just them wanting to win, it's them wanting their next contract and stuff. And if you're a wide receiver and the guy's not getting you the ball properly, that's fucking with your money. That'll make you turn on a guy real quick. So I don't know that they don't vibe with his personality or whatever, but I think they kind of see like, man, he's not all he's cracked up to be in terms of a quarterback. So
and not taking blame was terrible, obviously. Kyle, we have to get through some of these chats, and we're gonna do like almost like lightning round covering the game, like position group by position groups, where we kind of talk about it. But yeah, Murdoch, listen, if he could do what he did last week, I'm not saying throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns every game, but just get through his reads quickly, be accurate. That's all you need with this team. Like, we're talking about getting Jimmy Garoppolo for basically what Mike White just did. So yeah, you could do what he did last game and hopefully extrapolate that over his entire career. That's good enough. Like, you don't need a guy to be Mahomes to win a Super Bowl. So John D. Lee, he was a QB in 2023. Kyle, let's just and by the way, free agency needs free safety or O-line. O-line's always going to come first to me if it's a need at all. It's going to be the top of the list. But O-line, safety, linebacker, probably in that order for me, depending on who they resign, who they don't resign. If I personally had to bet right now, Jets opening day starter 2023, I would love to say Mike White, but I would probably hitch my wagon to Jimmy Garoppolo right now at this very moment. I know Mike White had a big game, but Joyner also saved a TD with a great tackle. Mega, I will make a compilation of him missing tackles. He really like.
Which tackles?
Yeah, he made that one tackle in the Pats game.
Is he talking about that one tackle where 21 broke free, or one of the long?
I think he's talking about the Pats game where he's like running up the sideline. He actually tracks him down pretty well. And I said that in the review.
Oh, okay.
But past that, he's not great. Murdoch, what's up? Okay, so Kyle, let's run through. I will try to stay in tune with the chat a little bit, but we only have like 30 minutes left or so. So Kyle, we talked about Mike White. We talked about the running backs for the most part, right? There's really nothing else to hit on with them. The receivers, I'm pretty sure Elijah Moore is happy to have Mike White in the game now. Obviously, he's like 2 receptions, 60 yards, a touchdown. He didn't do anything overly special on his touchdown. He just ran his route.
Yeah.
The play where he caught it over the middle though was a nice route. The release was nice to hold him inside. He got on top of him vertically. He used that bam step to kind of just sell an outside break to the corner. And then he got over top of him, caught the ball, bounced off another guy, ran for some yak yardage, some rack yardage, yards after catch, whatever we want to call it. So good game by Elijah Moore. Garrett Wilson, obviously good game. Yak, that was set up on that Eddie Jackson play where he went down, was great.
You were in your film review, which I only saw the first couple of minutes of, you were saying like, some of the catches, like you were talking about, like it was Mike White's first throw of the game. It's like a slant route, and Garrett Wilson's like catching it with his body as opposed to like, snagging it with his hands, and, little constructive criticism there.
Yeah.
But overall, obviously good.
Yeah. Overall good. And then like the touchdown, obviously, like he uses that throw by, and literally, and like to me, Kyle, like, how much is going on in the game, like when you're there, especially when you're closer. And like I see the whole play going on. I see Elijah Moore wide open. Then I see the ball, I see Garrett Wilson wide open. I see the ball come to him. I see a flag. I'm like, fuck, it's an offensive pass interference. Here it goes. And then it wasn't. I was like, holy shit. But like, he did a really good job. That corner was leaning really hard on him. He used a nice throw by, got to the outside in the corner route. I think it was a smash concept, and caught that touchdown. So good job by him. Corey Davis, very good at blocking. Mims, solid game of blocking, but still catching balls like a 10-year-old who doesn't know how to catch a ball. Sorry, just it was gross, that one catch he had. And then past that, Barrios had a nice, was like end around or whatever that was. But anything else to add to the receivers?
No, we can move
on. Tight ends. They blocked so damn well in this game. You had Conklin over the middle the one time. You had Conklin on the corner route. Did you see the play I put up on Twitter?
Yeah.
And then the Jets used the video, and they said hat tip Joe RB31, and I was like, hey, how about that follow though? Pretty much, and then they followed me. I was like, yes, let's go.
I didn't see the beginning of that, but I did see the aftermath where they finally followed you, following 12 something accounts, but not following you. I don't get that, but
no.
Anyway.
So the funny thing was, they used to follow. I hope they're not listening. They used to follow me, and I got very angry and drunk at a game, and I told them to unfollow me, and they obliged. I was like, no.
Which game was this?
I don't know. I think it was Adam Gase era. I was like, dude, unfollow me. I don't know if you have to follow me.
Joe Blewett, and there's been a lot of bad Jets football over the years. Joe Blewett gets very, very. I get mad. We all get mad, but Joe Blewett, when he's mad, it's just better not to talk to him. Yeah, just let him be him.
The Gase era, no. Especially when you have beverages too. Like when you're beveraged up, you go to a game, dude. Like I wake up at 6:30. You get home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. You're wasting 12 hours of your day on a game. And you go to a game in the past, and it's 30-3. They're putting out no effort. Nobody cares. Like, yeah, you get pissed off. So now, am I the asshole for going to the game?
I don't even.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah. Why were you even going to those games? That's what I want to
ask. Yeah. So that blocking, like, I try to show that. What play?
Yeah. Show it.
I don't know what play that was though. Who ran the ball in that play? Do you remember? Was it Zonovan Knight?
Yeah, I believe so.
Bam Hard. No, that's not it. Let me find it. So moving on from that, the offensive. I'll put it up in a second. The offensive line though was.
This was awesome. One of Connor McGovern's better at games.
Dude, he played very well this game. I put up a couple plays on Twitter, highlighted him a lot in the review. Dwayne Brown was solid. Laken Tomlinson was solid. Herbig had a flub or two in pass protection, but the one they asked him to. I don't love putting guards or any guys like pulling and having to adjust in space on pass protection. I get trying to sell play action extra hard with the pulling guard, but that's the one play that I remember of him flubbing up in pass protection. And then Mitchell was good as well. I really think this is the play. Yeah, this is the play.
Yeah, this is the
play. Which I'm not going to break down now. I already did it in the review, but I love them after this play. Like, it's just like, what tight ends get so excited about blocking? Like that is awesome to me. After this, when I was watching it, so I put that up on Twitter, and then I guess the Jets saw it, and they cut my video though. The only thing is they didn't really use it, so like their video starts and like you don't see Uzama. Like I guess they I don't know if they screen grabbed it and they just cut off Uzama, but nonetheless. Absolutely love these guys. Hell of a block by those that combo block getting to the second level. So
I mean, the great thing about them is, and this is something the Jets haven't had, is the both of them, while Uzama, certainly lacks a little bit in the receiving game as a tight end. I mean, like he's pretty damn good at getting yards after catch and stuff, and he has really long arms, so he definitely catches with his hands. The both of them, they have the option on any given play to block pretty damn well and hold up. Mm-hmm. Or also do a pretty good damn job in the receiving game. And it constantly keeps the defense guessing. So they ran, I now need to put out the numbers. It was something like close to 51% or something like that out of 12 personnel in this game. And, and obviously you're going to switch that up depending on what the defense does on any given week. But the fact that you can do that because you actually have the personnel to do that, I mean, that helps out a quarterback too. So it was really nice, man.
Yeah, no, they were all good this game. Like the offensive line was definitely impressive, and all of them. But like Connor McGovern specifically was very good in this game, and we've been on that train for quite a bit now, Kyle. Where like the first year, for whatever reason, people hated him. And I get,
he was pretty bad the first half of that year.
He started off slow. Yeah, I was gonna say that, but people talk about him like there's absolutely no way I want to bring McGovern back. Like I want McGovern back. Like he's a solid player. That like snatch technique he had, the reaches he had, he pancaked the guy this game. Like he was solid. Past that,
there was a big Bam Knight run late in the game, and I'm forgetting exactly, but I wrote my notes. There was a huge block by McGovern on that play. One of his more impressive blocks. I think it was whoever that Bears player was that had a big sack on Mike White. I think it was like number 96. I couldn't tell you exactly who he is. He had a big sack on Mike White. It was a damn good play. Play it one more time. Can you please? Yeah, this play.
Yeah.
And I watched this a gazillion times, and I was like, did the guy trip? I don't think he did. Like, I think this is just like, like great core strength by McGovern right here. He obviously has really good hand placement, and he just fucking, uses that core strength and just great timing and just jerks the shit out of this guy and just launches him.
Yeah. And I did this in a review. The thing that I talked about, I don't know if I put it, I was so tired doing that review, but like when I formatted my thoughts after, I think they were both fighting for like that play side leverage, and there was a lot of pressure in that left hand from the from the defensive lineman, and then you see McGovern's hand kind of attack that elbow, and he lifts it up. So I think he's off balance, and then he eventually just gets his hand into the core right there, and then that's what brings him down. So I think it's because he eliminates the main point of contact with that left arm of the defensive lineman. But he was very good. Defensive line, Huff had an easy sack. Q was relatively quiet. Everybody else was relatively quiet. Shepard had the half sack. JFM had a couple of nice rushes. Clemens, I didn't highlight him a lot.
One of his better games.
One of his better games, but like they're more like they're not like expected. I think I put maybe one or two, but like he's been stuffing the run pretty well. He had a couple nice bull rushes in this game. JJ also had that stuff on the quarterback sneak on third and 1. He had a stuff, so he's been playing pretty well. He had a nice rush, I believe, too. Not this game, but the Pats game. So Clemens playing well. JJ playing well. Q a little bit more quiet. Huff has had a sack like each of the last 3 weeks. Shepard has been taking steps in the right direction this year, which holy shit. Now Rankins, I think he was full participant today. So you get Rankins back versus struggling interior offensive line of the Vikings. Like that's exciting. Linebackers, Kyle. Quincy had a nice player too, like he normally does. Mosley had a solid game, minus the play where he's running in molasses to tackle the running back. Safeties, didn't notice much of them. DJ Reed, solid this game. He got beat for a touchdown. That's a hard play. Like the guy, it's a really hard play.
And Pringle had another lucky play on him too. Like he was right there on both those plays.
Yeah, the only play I gave him a little bit of grief for was he has I don't always love how he bails. Like he bails and he lets guys get behind him. His eyes get too far inside. They get on him vertical. Or there's times where he bails and he just lets guys kind of just have a free run, whether it be a break back or break inside. And he never really contacts them to feel that break. And you have Claypool who beat him on like a deep curl over the middle, and he was open and the ball just squirts out of his hands. But it's because of Q hit the quarterback and forced the quarterback to kind of fade out that throw. So like he was beat there because he never feels the route because he bails too much. But past that, solid.
I think part of the reason he does that so much is he is really good at sticking his foot in the ground and then breaking on a ball. But still, when you're giving up yards in the NFL, a game that is a game of inches, as they like to say, or a game of millimeters, as you like to say, when you're giving up that much, you're going to give up underneath stuff. It's just bound to happen, no matter how good you are at breaking on the ball.
We saw it a couple times with the Pats. Like they would target him on slants and stuff like that because he opens consistently and bails. So you're never going to be able to really match a slant unless the quarterback's. If the timing is good and you're bailing, it's going to be very, very hard to beat a slant. To win against the receiver running the slant. Sauce got beat that one play. That's a tough catch to make. It is what it is. He had a nice play in the end zone against Claypool. Sauce was fine. Special teams, Greg Zuerlein, 57-yarder in the rain, which could have been like a 70-yarder. That ball was not anywhere close to missing, which was awesome. He missed another one. And to start the game, Kyle, like Justin talked, this is going to fold into special teams, but like Jets drive, all excited. Fuck yeah, let's go. Bears drive right back. Shit. And then I think they scored 10 points total. and the Jets drive back down, kick a field goal. Brandon Mann botches it. Ball's going backwards, rolling. The Bears get it, rolling back. They fumble. Jets fumble. It was like a mess, and obviously it was ruled down. But special teams didn't start out off great with that. But overall, Greg the Leg, if they give him some credit. And then Brandon Mann had like 2 punts for 55, 60-ish per. He had the one punt that literally fell down at the 1 yard line. Okay. Listen, I'm never gonna excuse a guy saying like, oh well, it rained, so you're allowed to botch field goals. But at the end of the day, you excuse a little bit more than you would if it was obviously dry. So want to hit on any of the players, any stuff like that? I went through quickly just because of.
I have a question to ask. Does anybody know how often the Jets practice outside when it's raining? Because I feel like most teams nowadays will practice indoors when it's raining.
Few and far between.
Okay, so my issue with that is, especially when you're a team that you have a home stadium that is outside, you're going to play in the elements sometimes. And there's that whole, old joke about practicing with wet balls, right? Okay, insert the joke. But like seriously,
why do people joke about wet balls, Kyle?
If you're not used to handling that stuff, you're going to get yourself into some situations. So I don't know why teams don't practice that more, right, to prepare for those situations.
Yeah, like drench the ball and then kick in stuff. But yeah, when it's raining out, they just move inside. Coaching, they went back to more like Bills, like short concepts. I wouldn't say as many RPOs this game as it did in the Bills game, but it's like how many completions did Mike White have on like double slants? Like at least 3 or 4 completions on just slants. So even though he did attack down the field more than he did in prior games, I remember him playing. So hopefully that opens him up a little bit. I
think part of that is like his strength versus Zach Wilson's strength. So Zach Wilson, like he was good at the RPOs. He was good at like really riding the fake. And then he's got that quick throwing motion, that whipping throwing motion where he can whip it really quick after he holds that play fake. Mike White, he doesn't have as quick of a throwing motion, although his throwing motion is not slow. So I think you're going to see less of that with him, I think, even over the next coming weeks.
Yeah. One penalty for the team too. So you have to give credit to the coaching staff for that. As well, which people I think like, oh, penalties is the coaching. To me, it's the players too. Like it's, if you tell a guy to not jump off or false start and they false start, like kind of on both, I guess. Like it's more the player though to me, but nonetheless. Anything else to add to this game before we get through
we don't need to talk about that much more. I was gonna say it could be coaching too, if he's giving like a really long play call or like a confusing cadence or something like that. I mean, a little bit of it could be on coaching, but it's mostly the player. Anyway, let's see.
Somebody was asking about Beckman and his weight right now. Listen, he's probably off of his feet and he obviously balloons up. He's probably pushing 400. I would say right now. I'm not trying to shit on the guy, but you have a guy who struggles to manage his weight when he's active. When he's not active, he had surgery. Unless he's just eating straight, kale salad. I don't know how he's not going to gain some weight. So, what's up, MB? Very, very late, but I appreciate you being here nonetheless. Hopefully you go back and watch. But anything else to add before we get to the Vikings game?
No, let's talk about the Vikings game.
Cool. So I'm going to share the screen of their depth chart. Right, share. And we kind of already talked about it a decent amount, Kyle, right? Like we've already recapped a decent amount what we're afraid of with this team, but obviously their passing weapons are to be feared. Like you're looking at Adam Thielen, who's older now. He's what, 33 years old ish. Justin Jefferson is, to me, the best receiver in the NFL. I think you can argue him or Hill probably right now. If you want to throw someone else into there, that's obviously on you. But I think it's Jefferson and Hill. Jefferson probably being the one. And then you have Hawkinson, who has maybe disappointed a little bit with the Lions, but then he comes back to his first game with the Vikings and has like 80 yards and a touchdown. It's like, okay, maybe it was just the Lions, but nonetheless, obviously really good passing options that obviously you have to be afraid of. Now, with that being said, Jefferson and Thielen, I think they're going to do their damage. I am more concerned. I'm confident in Reed and Sauce to at least contain them. Where I am concerned with more of like Hawkinson over the middle, even though we haven't gotten carved up by tight ends this year, but I really haven't seen game plans heavy on tight ends. And then be targeted too much other than like maybe Mark Andrews, week 1, who they put Sauce on, but past that, like what tight ends that we faced that have been great. So what are your thoughts on some of these receiving options?
Yeah. Even though Thielen's a little bit old and probably not the player he once used to be, I still feel like, he can make a couple plays on us and stuff too, but I am overall very confident in our corners. I do feel like we match up pretty well with this team. They're obviously their offensive line is much improved. some people thought it was a reach when they took Brian O'Neill. I don't know if you want me to get an offensive line yet because you were just kind of hitting on skill positions. Garrett Bradbury, he had a tough rookie year, but he seems to have gotten better.
I know they're, and sorry, I see on the chat too, like people saying that they don't want Carr and Jimmy. And also, again, Carr and Jimmy would be the best quarterbacks we've had since Pennington. So, and they're both stiffs. Like those teams would bring this. We'd definitely be 9-2 with Carr or Jimmy right now. But nonetheless, with the offensive line, Kyle, I have to go back and read Nani's article. I do want to read it, but he did put up some good numbers for us concerning for the Vikings in terms of their interior offensive line and how bad they have been this year. So the interior offensive line, regardless of exactly who is good individually, they have not been good as a unit. And then Darisaw is out, so you're going to have Blake Brandel against Carl Lawson.
Is he 100% out for sure? Are we 100% positive about that?
He had a concussion and he's not practicing on Thursday. I rarely see guys not practice on Thursday and have a concussion and
that's
play.
big.
I'm 90% sure he's not going to play.
Okay, that's huge.
And I think he has had multiple concussions in like back-to-back weeks. So it's like one and then another one. So it's not like he just had one and then that's it. So you're looking at Blake Brandel, Cleveland, Bradbury, Ingram, and even with Bradbury, like Q has been a lot more decisive with his power. So even if he did improve a little bit, Bradbury is definitely not a guy who's going to hold up against power rushes from good power rushers. So Q Rankins this game, if we want to win, should feast. And then you're hoping that Lawson, who's been slightly disappointing this year, playing a backup left tackle, can at least, produce somewhat. So,
yeah. The interesting thing about Dalvin Cook is, he was so good at running outside zone in college. Definitely more of a zone runner from what I've seen in the NFL. He's a different type of back than what hurt us the past couple weeks. I would say that, guys like
power backs.
What's the Bears running back? I was just saying
Montgomery.
He's, I would say, more powerful than somebody like Cook. And obviously Stevenson is more powerful than Cook. Same thing can be said for Harris as well. You're thinking about a little bit more powerful downhill type backs, one cut type of guys. Cook is interesting. I do wonder, someone like Quincy Williams, who has a tendency to over pursue sometimes on like outside zone type of runs.
It's an outside zone heavy team. I was going to say that.
Yeah, I do wonder if he'll over pursue and there could be some big cutback lanes from time to time. That's a little bit concerning to me.
But at the end of the day, I'd rather play an outside zone team than like a gap heavy team. Even though the Jets have been better up against gap this year, like I think them playing outside zone or heavy zone, heavy outside zone is beneficial to our defense because of some of the speed and their rallying skills. And Quincy's been better this year with his tackling. It's not great, but he's definitely been better. So their offense, again, I think it comes down to how do they manage the run game against Cook? Can they tackle? And how do you manage the middle of the field, not only with Hawkinson, but with Cook out of the backfield? Like you can't have CJ Mosley hesitating to tackle whoever 21 was on the Bears when it's going to be Dalvin Cook who's going to take that for 6. So the linebackers and the safeties are the big emphasis in this game against those guys. Where again, I know that Thielen and Jefferson are going to get theirs, but I have faith in our corners to at least again make it a game with those guys. So.
Yeah, I feel like we match up pretty well with him on offense. I'm curious to look into some of the defensive matchups now and see how we match up there.
Yeah.
You want to start talking about defense?
Yeah, and with their offense, final thing is like I think Kirk Cousins, and I would want to watch a little bit more.
Of course, we got to talk about Kirk.
But like he's a decent quarterback, but I think if the Jets can get pressure on him, he's going to force a ball or two. He's going to throw up a pick or two. So I like the fact that you have an immobile quarterback behind an offensive line that's been struggling, especially in the interior versus a very good interior rush, and you have a backup tackle. So I think if you're at the end of the day, like they're really talented in the receiving game, but if he has no time to get the ball deep to the receivers, then it doesn't really matter as much. So I think it's going to be a lot more check down centric in this game, screen centric in this game, because they're going to get pressure on him, which again is going to put the emphasis on the linebackers and safety tackling.
It's interesting how the definition of an immobile quarterback has changed over the years. I remember it had to be about a year or two ago when Daniel Jeremiah put out this tweet and he said that, he's had to kind of totally reevaluate his scouting on quarterbacks because, he was specifically talking about the 2018 draft class and how some guys succeeded, whereas Josh Rosen hasn't. And he was saying that they all kind of had at least some mobility to their game where they could move, whereas Josh Rosen was this big stiff. And if you look at the trend of quarterbacks that have been taken, whether it's Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, a lot of these guys who have been taken really early, they can run the ball pretty well too, and they can, move out of pressure and stuff as well. Zach Wilson, obviously. Kirk Cousins, I certainly would not call him immobile by 20 years ago standards.
No.
I remember Kirk, I remember when Buffalo was making a playoff push, Rex Ryan's first year in Buffalo, and Kirk Cousins had like a 20-yard option run for a touchdown against the Bills. He's not a bad mover out there. Like I wouldn't call him a stiff per se, but obviously
he's not like Peyton Manning.
Yeah. He's not like Peyton Manning or
yeah.
Phillip Rivers. Eli, yeah, exactly. Like he can move better than some of these other guys, but he's certainly not mobile. He's not. You're certainly not terribly worried about him killing you with his legs. But you want to talk about being decisive and making the right reads and processing well. He's really almost as good as it comes in that regard, but he can struggle a little bit when he's under pressure. I feel like this is an area that he's gotten better in over the years, dealing with pressure around. Muddy pockets had a tendency, especially early in his career, to jam him up a little bit, but he has improved a little bit in this regard. But for the Kirk Cousins haters out there, he's a borderline top 10 quarterback year in, year out. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for the Jets for sure. He's certainly a hell of a lot better than Mac Jones, no doubt about that, and certainly a hell of a lot better than what we saw last week.
Their defensive line, I don't think it's bad. I don't know if Jonathan Bullard is playing well. I have no idea who that is. But I know Harrison Phillips played well in Buffalo. I don't think he's been as good since he's left Buffalo. Davin Tomlinson was okay with the Giants. Daniel Hunter, I know, has been disappointing for them this year.
Didn't play last year.
Yeah, he's hurt last year. Maybe he's still dealing with that, but I know his numbers haven't been as good this year. Zadarius Smith is still a very good rusher. So I think you're looking at a decent.
I'm just wondering why did Green Bay let him go?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was something with like injuries, right? Like there's injury questions about him, so they decided to keep Preston Smith. I could be wrong though. I think that's what it was, because didn't he like sign with the Vikings and then something happened with the contract and he signed back or something like that?
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think you're looking at a decent interior defensive line, like Davin Tomlinson and Phillips. They're nothing to write home about, but they're okay. Hunter has been disappointing, but still a solid, like a decent player. Zadarius Smith is a solid outside linebacker rusher for them. So it's a solid defensive front. Eric Kendricks is still a very good linebacker. I don't think he's as good as he was maybe a year or two ago, but he's still very solid. Jordan Hicks, I've heard the name, but I don't think he was impressive with Arizona. I don't think he's been good this year.
He was a UDFA guy out of University of Texas, if I'm not mistaken, and he played some of his early years in Philly.
Yeah, so I think
for a while. He's been in the league for a while.
In general, it's a decent defensive front led by a very solid player in Zadarius Smith, a solid linebacker in Kendricks, and a disappointing but still decent Daniel Hunter. Past that, I'm not overly concerned with anybody on that defensive front, and even like Eric Kendricks and Zadarius Smith. Like at the end of the day, Zadarius is good, but like I'm much more concerned about like Judon, who we've played in recent weeks. So past that. The secondary, Kyle. We have to find Cam. I guess
veterans for sure.
I guess Cam Dantzler. I think Cam Dantzler was a. Can I scroll down and see if Dantzler was a safety for them? Andrew Booth also got hurt. Was he? I think he was a safety. I don't know. Look it up, Kyle. But okay. Booth is out. I think Dantzler was a safety for them. So their depth in the secondary, regardless, is suffering. You have Patrick Peterson, who is very old now. I don't think he's very, very good anymore. Cam Bynum, Harrison Smith.
The only thing that really concerns me with these two veterans, specifically Pat Peterson and Harrison Smith, is that they could potentially bait the young quarterback in Mike White. Yeah. Right. And like, maybe fool him. Like, so you were talking about cover 3 replace, and maybe Mike White was fooled on that and the almost interception. Like, maybe some type of coverage, and one of these veterans could bait him, and that they get an easy turnover. And we obviously know turnovers wins games. So that's the concern for me. But I do feel like, Patrick Peterson, if, Garrett Wilson could give him a little bit of trouble just because he just can't move the way he used to.
Yeah. And there's names, obviously, like Patty P and Smith and all these guys, but like based on, I hate doing number stuff, but like they are 32nd ranked pass defense in the league in terms of like the yards they allow and things like that. So they should be able to pass on this.
You happen to know what their DVOA ranking is? I care more about
defense?
what their pass DVO ranking is than what their sheer yardage given up is. That to me means more.
Their pass, I thought, was 32nd in the league.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, what's their pass DVO? Like, I'm not talking about just straight yards.
Let me see. I might have screenshot.
I do think some of the stats are
dumb.
dumb, but I generally think that DVOA rankings are pretty good.
They're near the bottom. If they're not 32, they're very close. I would argue that we probably played the worst last week with the Bears because of the injuries they had, especially with Eddie Jackson going out. But you're looking at bottom 3 unit in the NFL. College because it's pushing past 8
Okay,
o'clock.
your question about Cam Dantzler.
Yeah.
According to Wikipedia, he's never played anything other than corner.
Okay, so I was wrong. Which is fine. So Kyle, score prediction, final thoughts on the game, and then we got to, or specifically, I have to get out of here. Which, by the way, my schedule is coming up to a point now where I'm gonna have Thursdays off for a little bit. Even though the one Thursday I'm going to be at the Jags game. I think somebody asked me in the chat. I missed it. I apologize, but somebody said, "Are you going to be there for the Jags or the Lions game?" I'm there for all the home games, unless I'm out of the country for the most part. So yeah, I'll be there. But Kyle,
I'll be there too.
Quick thoughts. Great, we're gonna lose. Quick thoughts and a score prediction.
Hey Joe, the curse has been broken because I never had tickets for the Patriots game in Foxborough, and they still lost that game. So
yeah, okay. I haven't been to a game. I haven't been to a game to you with you. I haven't been at.
I didn't say I was sitting with you.
I'm happy to see you after the game. Every time I see you after the game, we're miserable. We're pissed off. I'm more miserable than you are, like you said. But nonetheless, your score prediction. I got you out of here.
All right, so score prediction. We were actually predicting, the Jets record from here on out a couple weeks ago, and we were doing that with all the other teams they're competing for a wild card spot with as well. And we picked the Jets to lose to the Vikings. But honestly, I feel kind of good about this matchup. And I don't know if me with rose-colored glasses, it might be too high on Mike White. I don't know, but I kind of like the Jets. So I'm going to go with the Jets. And I think that the Vikings are a little bit of fool's gold. So I'm going to go with the Jets. I'm going to say this one's going to be a little bit higher scoring than one may anticipate. I will say 27-24 Jets.
Okay. I thought you were going to do the same exact one again. I'm going to say 27-20 Jets.
Okay.
I'm excited to break it down. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to watch them play in a dome and not shitty weather. Sorry to expedite that a little bit at the end, but again, I got work, so I gotta bounce out of here. But Kyle, any last words for the chat? Who again, it's 170 now, but we're pushing 220 plus strong for a good amount. So definitely appreciate everybody in here.
Yeah, it was fun.
Especially the people who've been here since like day one, year one. Those are the people I appreciate the most. So
yeah, and we love everybody. And obviously, some of the consistent people don't super chat, but definitely be the people who super chatted too. And we were so sorry that I forgot my job and screwed up on that. But anyway, thank you guys so much. And just join the website too and start really diving into those film reviews and some of that other stuff. Anyway, guys, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next Thursday at which we got to figure out what we're doing for the Jaguars game, but we'll figure that out with the stream. Maybe the day before we'll do the stream. Nonetheless, we'll be back next Thursday. Obviously, stay tuned for the next film review. JorB31 on Twitter, Kyle J. Smith on Twitter for really a guy who doesn't tweet at all. But nonetheless, just throw the follow because it's Kyle. Appreciate all you guys. And,
I usually respond.